Hey everybody. First, before we get into what just happened on Gman's channel, I got to give a shout out to TellTale, my friend, who was very nice enough to put out a shout out video to me, the Geek Room, and to Zod. And it was he made a little mistake on my position, which is fine, but it still was very nice of him. He has 20,000 subs, and he wants to give back and promote channels. And so if you haven't seen his video yet, the link is in the video description. His name's TellTale. He makes some really awesome videos, and he really likes the Great Debate community and really likes my channel. So he put a shout out. So go watch his video and give it a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribing to the Geek Rooms too, which, by the way, I'll put in the video description. But anyways, what just happened? And here's the thing. I by the way, Gman did eject me, even though we were off air, and I was giving him a compliment at the time. Dragnot was listening. I was in the process of saying that Gman was doing a decent job moderating, but Nephi would not shut up.
No, Nephi was busy muting people. That's why.
Nephi, yeah, he was muting you twice. Everyone else.
Yeah, no, Gman kicked everyone out, by the way, except Nephi.
Okay,
he's going to call me in a few minutes, supposedly. But
yeah, Nephi. I think Gman was doing a decent job. I don't have anything negative to say about Gman at this point with what he did. I don't. What I will say, however, is that we were invited in to ask him questions, not the other way around. Now, he can ask questions. I understand that. And I give a very basic answer, but I want to go on record. I am not a fucking biologist. I'm not going to school for biology. I've biology 25 years ago. I have a basic high school freshman, maybe sophomore level of these materials. Okay, I am not equipped or qualified to give out information dealing with things like the organizer region or Hox genes. I understand what they are. I've read Neil Shubin's book. I loved the uriner fish. I do conceptually understand these things. But if he wants the questions answered to his satisfaction, he needs to ask Alex or Doc Savage or Dragnot or Sam or Jade. These are the people that I go to for biological information. I do not want to be represented as somebody that is an expert on these topics, because I'm far, far from it. I just am somebody who understands more than Nephi does these concepts. And so when he asks me a question, I'm only going to give him a very basic answer, like dealing with the homeobox genes, which I did. I'm not there to cite him papers, because what happens is now it becomes the Nephi show, and Nephi will spend the entire time asking people for information on things that he'll never ever read or care about. Jade and I have been through this with him before on more than one occasion, and so I don't like to go down that rabbit hole. This is why I was asking Gman. Well, I'm here to ask him a question, and people have asked me what the question I was going to ask him was. I wanted to ask him more about speciation. Specifically, if he doesn't accept allopatric or sympatric speciation. These are what evolutionary things to me highly involve. You cannot have macroevolution if there's no speciation involved, and yet he seems to have a problem with what speciation is. And I agree there's a speciation problem, but that only means is what we define to be a species, as far as I understand it. But if two populations are biologically reproductively isolated from each other, I don't know how anybody would call them the same species. Would they, Alex? I mean, if they're completely reproductively isolated, aren't they just generally, for the most part, two different species?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go by the biological species idea, by the biological species concept, yeah.
Well, you mean that thing that I mentioned that Nephi claimed he understood and he didn't?
Then
but there are other ways to define it. I get that. I get there's other ways to show, define what a species is. Okay,
well,
fine.
Yeah, and that's kind of... Go ahead.
Also, an important point to remember is that the species problem exists because evolution is a real thing. Life forms are not static, they are fluid. And therefore, drawing a sharp line like, oh, this is a species and this is not a species, is very, very difficult at sometimes.
Exactly. There's no line of demarcation here for that very reason, because evolution is a real thing.
The thing is that he was, what Nephi was promoting is the idea that like ideas are in the same camp as people who acknowledge actual science, and say, well, if there is an issue with how we define something, we can change different criterion to determine that. That's why you have two competing theories with the biological species versus the phylogenetic, but they both contain criterion, and that's why my second question specified that he needs to have some type of criterion, and he gives none, and he openly admitted he has nothing. Yes, so there is no competition there.
But I also asked the question myself: what criteria do you use to determine whether two organisms are the same kind or not? And he did not answer it at all.
But here's for the speciation. Look at eventually there's enough divergence, and I think that even he would agree that these are different species. And as I understand, the species problem is going back to that fork. When do you call them a different species? When is the divergence process such that you can call them different species? Is it after some kind of prozygotic termination that different species, even though they're viable with each other and they produce a zygote, they won't come to term? Is that something that's a different species, or is it something that once it's born dies because it's not viable at that point? Is that a different species, or something that is basically incompatible to even genetically reproduce? Is that a new species? These are valid questions, are they not?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And then this idea, I mean, I actually wrote down some stuff when he was going through his, whatever you want to call it at the beginning. You actually want to hear what I wrote down?
Yes.
Okay, so evolution doesn't tell us who we are or where we come from.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
So the next one is there's a controversy within evolution, and that's reference to ID versus evolution, which the Dover trial.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, the Dover trial squashed that one. Nephi's here. Here's Nephi's background: reading abstracts for 5.5 months and comparing claims.
Genius.
He actually acknowledged he just reads abstracts. That's why I was asking.
Which is something we've said all along.
Yeah, oh no, we already knew that, but he actually admitted it. You need to read like kind of the whole paper and several of them, not just one. I think Tommy had that issue where he didn't understand that you need to read multiple papers in order to kind of understand what's going on, with a few exceptions, but generally you would need to read multiple, just like having more than one book on the same topic.
But if you don't, the Dragon, if you don't know the words being used, and this is what was critical, and this is what I wanted Alex for, because Alex is my ace in the hole when it comes to this topic. He's one of the people that I know has demonstrated a proficiency in these topics. When you have an expert, and I'm sorry, Alex, I consider you obviously to be an expert, because you are, but you were correcting him, and you said very poignantly, Nephi, you're just not using these words right. You're not using them in the way anybody else would be using them, and that means something, because if he's not using these words correctly, how is it he's reading these things and interpreting it the way the author is writing it?
Oh yeah,
I was actually a little surprised. I shouldn't have been, because I read his incredibly. He has like this long thing on Ichthyostega on a blog somewhere.
I sent you that, yeah.
Yeah, and you sent that to me, and I think I wrote like a 5-page list, and it's like 33 point long, 33 different things that are like fundamentally wrong with it, and most of it is, this is not what this means, what are you doing? But yeah, like, it's really hard to have a meaningful discussion about something when they don't actually even understand the arguments you're making in the first place.
Right.
Like that entire like birds don't show up till the Cenozoic thing's insane. That was never the position. Or like, and he's got very close to a point that would have actually been interesting to discuss, which was the paradox of feather dinosaurs to stem birds, which was something with like, which honestly, even at the time when people was just like, this is probably just a sampling error, and then someone wrote a paper. But and then in 2009, it's like, oh, cool, look at all these Middle Jurassic feathered dinosaurs that clearly show this transition. But like, I honestly feel like I'm talking to the audiobook version of an ICR article.
Yeah, Nephi doesn't understand that feathers are older than birds. They first appeared in theropods, the ancestor of birds,
yep.
and then were inherited.
Basal dinosaurs.
Yes.
Well, I mean, he bounces around between Fiducia and Olson, and like, Fiducia's a really good paleoornithologist, and he always gets, but he hasn't updated with the times.
No.
His methodology is like fundamentally flawed in a lot of ways.
Well, that's perfect. That's perfect for Nephi. If you actually notice, a lot of the things that Nephi will mention, they're decades old. And even at the beginning of the conversation, or if you want to call it debate, interview, whatever, he deferred to early Darwinian evolution, like its first inception. He's been told literally for the last 5 years that Darwin got some things right and he got some things wrong. What survived were the things that we could substantiate. And then with the advent of genetics, then we were able to further specify what's out there and who goes with where and all that, this, that, and the other. Nephi doesn't care. Nephi loves to bring up things that we have long since debunked and then pretends as though this is still in the current literature and being taught in classrooms. But as you see, when he's asked for, evidence, like, what makes you think that this is still being, out there, he can't give you one. And so then that's when the Gman protection. Go ahead.
He has no clue of even the basics, right? Like, I kind of tuned out for a little bit to eat lunch and have some coffee, and I come back and I hear him saying, "Well, the most common random mutations are gene duplications," and it's just like, well, no, I have the actual evidence of that, like
single nucleotide polymorphisms, right? SNPs.
Yeah, it's SNPs. Yeah, well, I mean, like, I can show people the data that you can look at. It's from the Sanger Mouse Genome Consortium, because one of my research projects is comparing 2 strains of mice that have diverged. I guess, like, I can tell you a lot about the nature of the variation between these 2 strains. And in fact, I actually wrote my own variant calling pipeline. So I can assure you, SNPs are the most common variants between the 2. Like, and then it's indels, then it's segmental duplications and deletions. Then there's just various. That's indels.
Sorry, exactly. Yeah.
Single or small base pair, I should say. So like 3 base pairs or 4, like something like that. Those, and then after that, it's a more complex structural variation, stuff like inversions, interchromosomal swapping, stuff that's extremely rare.
Fusions.
And you can download I can direct people to download all of this. Like, it's all publicly available. The Sanger Consortium made this publicly available for 28 strains of mice. You're talking about, I think, roughly the estimated time of divergence is only, I think at most 1 million years, and then for some of the strains, it's like 70 or 80 years.
Oh, well, so, there's an issue with that, Sam. Those are mice. We're talking about people. There's no way in shape or form that we use mice to compare to people.
And haven't you guys said before in your journal club that pretty much anything over like 3 years, if I'm not, or I don't remember exactly what you said. I thought it was 3 years, is pretty well considered to be antiquated?
It depends on the field.
Paleontology,
if you're talking about genome structure, for example, he was mentioning genome structure. I mean, if you're talking the technique that people use genomic technologies to gauge genome structure, that was invented in 2009. Basically, any paper in the last 5 years is regarded as outdated because the field has progressed so much. And the method itself has progressed so much. So it just depends, Like, a lot of the same stuff for epigenetics that was true, 6-7 years ago is still true now. It really, really depends.
Well, Nephi goes back to the 80s. He goes back to papers written in the 70s and 80s, I've seen.
It just doesn't make it doesn't make sense. Like, you can quote those papers, but you also have to, have them make sure that they're grounded, because, I mean, whole genome sequencing didn't really, for anything higher than yeast, really didn't exist before 2000 on any high throughput scale, right? Like, even now it costs, $5,000 a pop, for a lab to sequence an entire human genome, right? With requisite depth, right? This is why things like the Cancer Moonshot Project costs a lot of fucking money, because you have to sequence tumors at even higher depths, because there's a lot of variation genetically in tumors. So it's one of those things where, if you're referencing findings regarding how genomes change and you're not referring to something later than, let's do a cut, 2008, I'm going to have a lot of trouble taking you seriously. That's not to say I haven't cited papers that were written before then, but it's a context thing.
Yeah, whenever I want to read an interesting paper, I always search for another paper that cites this paper, and I search for another paper on the same subject, and to see whether something has been updated, or maybe a new discovery has been made, to see whether the paper has been corrected on something or not.
That, or who cites it,
Yes.
I know of several papers where Like there was one paper that was considered a big finding, and then there were 6 papers that completely rebutted it. Like
Exactly.
that happens, right? Like it seems bizarre to me because Nephi will criticize people being,
nitpicky?
like almost like, well, no, like I don't know what to say. Like people almost he cites it almost as if the scientific literature, like the body of literature, is being
Being guided.
being, how do you say it, like fickle, like they'll change. But then at the same time, he'll criticize for them not changing and not accepting the creation view. Well, which one is it? Are they just completely fickle, or are we talking about people who actually change when the data changes? Like you can't have both, right? Those are two mutually inconsistent points of view. Correct me if I'm wrong on that analysis, but I don't think that I am. I think that it's just blatantly clear that you can't at once criticize them for being hard-headed and then criticize them for the literature changing all the time.
Yeah,
it's not how it works.
Yeah, it's a double standard. The one thing they will say that there was a big conspiracy among scientists against creationism, and another thing they will say that many scientists are leaving Darwinism, like the descent from Darwinism or some sort. It's very dumb.
And they use that stupid term Darwinism.
Exactly. That is one thing I highly, not necessarily hate, but very annoyed by Richard Dawkins for describing himself as a Darwinist. I really think he shouldn't do that, because why would you do that? Why would you describe yourself as a Newtonist as a belief in gravity?
It's because there was a school of thought that now we understand is pretty much false, which is neo-Darwinism.
Yeah.
And at this point, we understand that, like, okay, it's an outdated paradigm. Like, and I think a lot of people stick to like what Richard Dawkins says is gospel. But to be honest, he hasn't been up on the literature with evolution in I don't know how long.
Yeah,
like, he has no fucking clue what he's talking about on a lot of stuff. And his ideas, like in the selfish gene, are largely regarded as just out of date. Like we just don't like data disproves it.
Do you think that's because he decided to focus more on like other types of things, like his activism and?
I think so.
Oh yeah. I mean, what was the last like actual? Like he's written 2 biographies recently, and that was like it.
He's never like I don't think he's actually published in the primary literature since the 80s. I want to say.
Oh right,
but he's like the go-to. Right? But don't people? I mean, they prop him up like this go-to person. It's like, oh, if you accept evolutionary theory, then you have to accept everything that Dawkins says. And it's like, no. In fact, I don't. His Dawkins scale even thing, I think is ridiculous. I don't like his Dawkins.
Oh my god, I just came from an argument about that.
You're not a fan of it either, right?
So somehow Dawkins is portrayed as the god of evolutionists today, like creationists. I don't know why.
Like, I'm not even a science person, and I know that you don't take everything that someone says as, quote, gospel just because they were knowledgeable. Like, even Stephen Hawking can be wrong about stuff. Like, you're not going to go, ooh, Stephen Hawking said it, it must never change. Like, no.
Well, it's one thing to cite them as they are experts, but that doesn't mean that just because you have an ideological agreement with people that you have to be lockstep with them. In everything. I find that to be strange that if you accept one thing, that certain creationists think that you accept everything.
It's religious. I see it as a religious thinking pattern, because that's those of us who are raised that way, that are really, really indoctrinated. You end up thinking that way about other things. Like, I have friends who have been away from religion for decades, and they still catch themselves doing that.
You're right. Yeah, I think it is a mindset. Hey, Drag, did Gman want to come in? He's more than welcome to. He came in the other day and he wasn't feeling well, as you guys remember, and it was actually quite normal. I was kind of taken ababack. I was kind of taken off guard. Not gonna front.
He even like listened to the response of my question and like accepted what I said. I was like, whoa.
You know what? I'm one of those people that give credit where credit is due. And if he's actually having a civil discussion and being normal and talking, engaging, I'm going to point that out. I think it's good to have that reinforcement of that kind of behavior, don't you?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because we do dog on him quite frequently, so it's nice to have it be normal for a change.
Found it. I figured out where the owl came from.
Oh,
I just did
really?
like a 2-second
Oh, did you
search.
find it?
Yeah.
Where was
Okay,
it? I'm really interested.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know what they were referring to.
Because the other stuff I know about, because I said I did a little video about
All
this
right,
a
so
while
I'm gonna
back.
post
So
it
I'm
in the
really
thing.
interested.
So the claim, I'm sure, because he couldn't get a taxa, is from some garbage ICR article that lists a bunch of
crap.
modern birds. But I think where he's getting that from is this, which is about I can't pronounce it. It's a the paper was published in 1975.
Yeah.
I think
And
you
it's
pronounce
about-
it as Brady Semidae.
The family, yeah. So it's about a taxa, and it's a supposed Maastrichtian owl, and it's not. It was a misidentification based on limited material, and it's actually an Alvarezsaur dinosaur. It's one of these cool. They have really reduced forearms and like a long bird-like skull, like Mononicus. And like this was, if this article's from like 2011. I don't like this was they realized that this wasn't an owl not too long after this discovery was made. It's very I don't know how you can read an article that has no citations and then not look it up and then be confident that it's right.
That's what he's done. He actually cited me an article that my thesis advisor for my master's wrote, and that I actually helped proofread for publication. And I was like, do you really want to do this right now, Neff? He goes, what do you mean? I go, I mean, I could get this guy on the phone. I can walk over into his lab because I happen to work in it, you know?
Yeah.
And he shut the fuck up. Like, this is not a guy who, you know, I go, I know for a fact this guy accepts evolution. He goes, oh, no, you don't know that. You don't know that. And I'm like, okay. Like, you can, like, smile on my face from ear to ear, of course.
Didn't you think it was kind of odd though that Gman was telling people that Nephi doesn't have this right immediately available? Okay, fair enough. And yet Nephi will ask questions, like he was trying to ask me questions. I didn't have the information readily available. I wasn't there to give information.
And he let Nephi badger you, even though he protected him from. And I just got off the phone with Gman and told him about that. And I said, that's the only issue that I had.
He's done that before. He did it with Jade and I before, and Jade didn't even have the material in front of her, and she was very polite and saying, "Look, I will get back to you on this. I will find the links that I need to get to you, and then we can go over them." But that wasn't good enough, and it's just like he does this all the time. He knows that we're not going to have this stuff readily available at our fingertips. I have enough information that I know the basics, very, very basics, and I know enough to go, okay, I understand, I could follow the conversation, but I'm not going to be the person to go to say, oh, I've read this study and here's the link for it and go right to it. That's impossible.
But I think when you do it with Nephi, you have to tailor stuff. If you don't have it right there in front of you, or if you can't, recollect exactly what you're talking about, it's best not to even bring it up, because he does try to use that as leverage later, even though he himself will say, well, I'll have to look this up, and he will play both sides of that coin.
Oh, sure. And then if you don't answer, be like, oh, look, they're not answering my question. Nephi has a video out there. Oh, look, they're not answering our questions. Well, we weren't there to answer your questions again. If you want to have questions asked and answered, then why don't you ask Alex? He's the one that was there to provide those types of answers.
Well, the issue becomes is he thinks the issue is more that he thinks he knows things, that he doesn't know anything. I mean, when you were asking him about the phylogenetic species concept, he just goes, "Yeah, I know what phylogenetics is." I go, "Not the same thing." Like, if he's like, "Well, they have the same problem," I go, "No, I've taken a class on." I've taken a class on the algorithms of population genetics, no, all models, I can say all models of population diversity, currently, they take in some model of evolution as an input. So, like, people have there are arguments in the literature about which test statistic, which method is better. And people have cases where they're like, look, for this case, this works way better. We need to have an actual argument about it. But to him, it's like, oh, no, it's the same problem as the fact that kind doesn't even mean anything.
Alex, you're beating the crap out of your keyboard right now. By the way, I was told to tell you, Alex, you have wonderful hair by a bunch of people.
Yes, my wife loves your hair for some reason, Alex.
Drag's wife loves your hair, so.
Apparently, it's quite popular.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't cut it.
Does it make you smart? Does your hair do that?
Well,
Yeah,
so what I-
actually, I
Also,
think it-
also, I think I just am showing now Nephi's owl. Or no, am I not, Alex?
Hey, Ness, do you have that
Oh,
photograph
oh,
that
so
we
yeah.
shared the other day on the Great Debate community that he
I
was
can,
at? Remember, he said there was like, can you show 5
I can-
fossils? And you had this really amazing picture of various types of families
Mhm.
from like 3 different types of branches of dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I did like 6 branches of dinosaurs.
it was great. It's exactly what he was asking for too.
one of the
I will show it in a minute. Alex, is this the owl thing that the Nephi was talking about, or is it another animal?
that is the owl.
it's,
And
it's clearly an
Yeah,
owl.
I don't see the resemblance here.
No, it's
Sorry.
clearly. Remember, if you clearly look at it, then it's obvious. That's how you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So that's an
confusion,
owl. Wait, that's an owl kind?
Yeah.
the confusion came
Get
from
what?
when it was found. They
It
found
looks like a
part
duck to
of the
me.
foot, kind of this concentration of bones. All the tarsals are the same length, and it's called an arctometatarsus. And it shows up in a bunch of dinosaur lineages, and then also owls and a few other bird groups. And they
So
were just like, this looks like an owl foot.
There you go.
Then they found more of the animal and like, oh no, this isn't an owl. They changed the paper. They're like, we were wrong. It's this newly identified group of dinosaurs called Alvarezsaurids, and that was that.
So
It's a owl to some people. No scientist thinks it's an owl, but they just haven't bothered to update that.
Yeah, can I just sort of say something about that? These
Sure.
people, as most people here know, I have a collection not only of creationist literature.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. But some of the things they reference incorrectly. I've got out there and found it. One particular book, which I discovered was actually 2 books, took me years to find, and I had it shipped from Germany when I finally found it. And that was the work of Dr. Niels Heribert Nielsen. Neff, this just shows you what I call the evolution of Nephi. Neff used to reference Nielsen all the time. I don't know if he finally caught on that I got the books or not. But he used to reference Nielsen all the time. And there's a quote in there that says, where Nielsen says something about having, I actually have typed it out from the book, and I have it on I mean, I can give people links to my Dropbox where it is. But so he says, I have, I've studied and I have seen no evidence of Neff. Then it became that Dr. Nielsen was this scientist who studied bacteria for 30 years and found no evidence of evolution. Then it became that Dr. Nielsen was a bacteriologist who studied evolution for 30 years, or sometimes 40 years. I forget which one it actually is, but Neff's changed it slightly, but that part doesn't bother me. So Dr. Nielsen was a bacteriologist who studied evolution for 30 or 40 years and found no evidence of evolution. Nielsen studied plants. Dr. Nielsen's research was on a hybrid of salix, the willow. He created a hybrid of salix in a greenhouse, and then he took it outside to see how it would fare. It didn't fare too well. Study bacteria. He's not a bacteriologist.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's completely off context. But I said, I finally got the books. And at first I was really puzzled because when I looked up Dr. Nielsen, all of his papers, you can find his papers, he's thought of very highly. He's from the University of Lund, I'm not sure how it's pronounced correctly, in Sweden. He's thought of very highly as a teacher. I spent quite a bit of time researching him. All of his papers are listed at the university. I actually looked them up in Google Scholar first, and they're all in German. The book was in German. Well, it turns out this one section is in English, and where he talks about his experiments. Well, there are 2 places in his books. It's actually 1 book, 2 volumes, I guess to say. In his book, that are frequently quoted by creationists, and they are such, it's hysterical. And as I said, anyone who wants the actual, what Dr. Nilsson actually said, one of these days I'm going to actually scan it. I will tell you. The other last thing I want to say about this is Dr. Nilsson was a bit of an eccentric. He had his own particular version of evolution. And he published the books. These 2 books were published the same year that Watson and Crick published on the structure of DNA. That goes to show you how old this was.
Didn't Nephi say that Niles Eldridge was one of the co-discoverers of the structure of DNA?
Oh, he's Niles Eldridge. Yes, he did. That was Niles Eldridge. This is Nilsson, different person.
Hang on. I don't want to derail this. I'm actually not here to contribute. Anyway. I'm just here to kind of make something clear because I'm actually at work right now. So let me just say this. And yeah, I know. So anyway, I was originally going to support Anthony Riley for Dumb Fuck of the Year, but I'm going to have to change that to Tommy Hall because guess who just blocked me?
Tommy Hall.
Oh.
Yeah. Tommy Hall just blocked me because I told him that my grandfather was saved by chemotherapy, and if it wasn't for chemotherapy, that he would be fucking dead right now. And then I basically told him that he can go fuck himself for posting such harmful shit.
That's my position. And by the way, Geo Straber, you're going down. Sean Hufford, you're going down. Go Team Hall. Here's the thing. You look at. I understand Anthony Riley is a complete moron. Let's call a spade. He's just a complete moron. But the problem is he's no different to me than any other flat earther. There's nothing about him that stands out as far as his dumb fuckery. Tommy is not only promoting dumb fuckery, he's dangerous about it. I mean, and what's worse, I think what killed me the most is when people took the time to have a hangout. Fiona, Hogtie, Sam, Drag, a whole bunch of people were having a hangout to explain cancer to people. And Tommy didn't even take the time to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
At that point, you are the biggest dumb fuck on the planet because you've pissed away an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah. Also, I would like to kind of make a plea to you, Steve, if at all possible.
Sure. I love it when you beg.
Yeah, of course you do. That usually we save that for our private moments, but this one's going to have to be public, unfortunately.
For a while, though, so. Okay,
well, I'm sorry.
You watching. They're going to get the wrong impression here. So go ahead.
Listen. You got demoted to side bitch number 2. Okay, so quit your bitching. Anyway,
3 or 4 now.
Well, if you do this for me, you might just make it up in the ranks.
Vincent, then me. So
anyway, as I was saying, or as I was about to plead, he has this
out of that beard.
Yeah, well, he has this article on the GDC that I'm going to go ahead and call dangerous, or a post, not necessarily the article, because the article, takes out of context something, and anyone who wants to actually read the paper can figure out that, hey, they're still saying chemo fucking works, you fucking moron. But what he's saying in the top, and for people who are going to stop at just his typed up post, dangerous, I don't think it has a place in the GDC. So as the moderator, as the owner, I would say take that shit down, because that, if he wants to post it on his own G+, by all means, but that kind of harmful shit should not be on the GDC.
I will definitely take a look at it. Jade, can you also take a look at it as well?
Yeah, I'm looking at the latest one right now. Now, he's posted 2 of them. An earlier one I would leave up, mostly because of the comments underneath it. I don't think we should lose those comments. Or we should do like a separate post, copy the comments, put them there, and delete Tommy's original post, something like that. But sometimes we really want to. We need to think about this, Steve, because sometimes, although the article may be dangerous, the comments should be preserved. That's something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to just toss aside comments, because a lot of times, very valuable information. So
so possible to make a second post. A separate post saying Tommy Hall posted bullshit. Well, maybe not use that term. And here are the comments or something like that. Because I do.
Do that. And the thing is that I'm more than happy to copy and paste it. But unlike Tommy Hall, I'm not going to block people from actually commenting on it, because the reason why he blocked me was not only because I told him to go fuck himself, but it was also because I told him that, hey, My grandfather is evidence, is evidence of the fact that chemotherapy fucking works, and they should take it.
Aren't you a moderator, Reds?
I am a moderator, but if he blocks me, I can't see his post.
Yeah, but you're not. Yeah, but one of the rules is you can't block moderators.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what he did.
I mean,
So
we
I
haven't
think-
really enforced that particular rule, but I think it's a good rule, obviously for various reasons, that you can't block moderators.
Okay. I think
Yeah, so
Tommy needs
that's
to
what he
know
did. He
this.
blocked the
Yeah.
moderator after I was telling him that, hey, my grandfather is alive today because of chemotherapy.
Yeah, my brother lasted at least another decade because of it. He would have died way sooner had he not had any of the.
But Tommy would claim that your grandpa survived because his
Yeah.
tumors absorbed all the toxins.
Yeah,
Oh,
of
yeah,
course,
that's
bullshit
it.
like that. So
Mhm.
basically,
Well, I'm glad you're on
how about
board with
this?
that. Thank you,
How about
Reds.
this, Steve? I really have to go here, but how about this? Discuss it amongst the people in the hangout right now. Tommy Hall has two options. He can either unblock me because you can't block moderators, or he can delete that post himself. Give him the choice.
Okay. All right. We'll definitely do that. Sounds good. And I'm glad you're on board with this. Look, I understand flat earthers are dumb fucks. They all are. I agree, though. This is something that's dangerous, and I think that Tommy is deserving of
Absolutely.
this to no end. And I know it's neck
Yeah,
and neck.
exactly.
I looked at the numbers. I got up the other day. And I've been getting up real early because I can't sleep very well. So I get a couple hours in the morning. I get up about 6 a.m. and he was at 60 votes, and I was like, oh, we got to do something about this. So I literally put it all over social media. He's at 200 and plus now, and I know Anthony Riley is a little bit ahead. So it's neck and neck. I don't think the other ones are going to be coming close. But it's early. It's real early.
Wait, did Nephi make the nomination? Did he make the list?
No, he didn't make the nomination because we all unanimously voted that he can go fuck himself and he's not really important.
And what's funny is C. Brown is in dead last. And I was saying the other day, Reds, that the worst place to be other than #1 for Dumbfuck of the Year is the 10th spot. Because that literally
Exactly.
means nobody even cared enough to go vote for you.
Exactly. So with that, I'm going to head off, but discuss them amongst yourself. Give Tommy those two choices and see which one he goes for. I'll be waiting for your guys' messages. I won't be able to listen in, so just message to me if you can what you guys decided.
Sorry.
I'm cool with that.
My system here.
Yeah.
right,
Jade, will
peace.
you be kind enough to make that happen? Would you do that?
I'm going to tell Tommy that he has to unblock Red or he will be out of the GDC.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, here's the thing. I understand these rules for a reason, but I think I don't want to have to kick Tommy. I mean, that's just Tommy's been around for a while.
Yeah.
He does provide a
It's kind of
counterbalance.
standard rule, though, and pretty much
know.
every group I belong to. It's like you.
Well, the problem is that we've never really enforced that rule that much, and it's kind of been arbitrary when we decide. Oh well, because I don't know. Honestly, at this point, I don't even know all the moderators. I never really made a list, and I don't know who's blocking whom, and I don't know if somebody is blocking somebody. I have no way to check.
Right.
I can't tell if somebody's blocked somebody. I don't know. So it's kind of really difficult to enforce that particular rule.
Okay.
Just tell him he needs to. How about if I just simply tell him he needs to unblock Red?
Yeah,
'Cause you
just
cannot
do that.
block
Tommy will.
moderators.
Tommy will
Okay, I'll
unblock
do
him.
that.
So I think we need to get back on Nephi because there's a lot to cover.
Oh yeah, I'm down.
There is a lot to cover.
And before we do that, though, real quick, I do want to thank all the new people that are watching. Again, TellTale had put a shout out, and we have a lot of people watching that have not probably watched the GDC before. So if they want to join the Great Debate community and they want to be a part of these hangouts and topics and discuss all these different things that TellTale and Holy Kool-Aid and Cosmic Skeptic and Rachel Oates and all the people that are YouTubers about these subjects, go join the link at the bottom of the video. Well, actually, I think it's at the top now, and become a member of the Great Debate community. And we'll post when we have these types of hangouts and these types of shows. And come on in.
By the way, I gave you guys a shout out on. I was on Minnesota AM 950 this morning, and it came up. So we talked about the GDC a bit.
And I appreciate that. A lot of people have been talking about the GDC, and I can't go into too many details, but I will tell the audience this: there is a lot of stuff afoot to publicize us, and we are going to get some national attention here in the next couple months. So
Here,
right.
my computer is running really slow today, so I cannot watch the live chat. So if anyone in the live chat asks me a question, could someone in here let me know? That's all I wanted to say.
I'll pull up the live chat. So someone tag me with a question for Jade, and I'll put it in the chat for you. How about that? I'll put it in the intro.
Okay,
right, let's go back
I
to
just
the
wanted to
Nephi.
say that. Okay, so let's go back to Neff.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the things that I wrote down, and
Did you man want to come in, Drag? I'm sorry. Did you man want to come in?
Who?
Did you get a hold of him?
Who, Nephilim? Oh
No,
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 G
no.
no, oh no, G-Man's he's gonna go get something to eat.
Okay. All right.
So by the way, folks, G-Man did apologize for kicking folks. He said things were going crazy.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
So,
It
I just
nobody's mind.
I wanted to not, because he's gonna go back and watch this later, so I wanted to let folks know, right then and there. But so Nephi said something very interesting.
Oh, I'll
What
mute
is
Alex
this
for a moment.
background new?
I muted Alex for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So DNA disproves evolution because DNA is a four-dimensional structure and it looks designed, and we know designs come from designers, and designers have minds, so we know that the DNA came from a mind.
A circular argument works because a circular argument works.
Basically.
I
So
don't
do you
know that it's circular. I think it's just a brute
Oh, wait.
statement of what he thinks to be the case.
He asserted that it was designed, and therefore it's designed, basically.
Does
Well, no, he
anyone know-
said no. He just asserted. No, he just asserted that it has these features that define designed things. Therefore, it's designed.
where did he get the four-dimensional structure from?
Because there's a new project that the NIH is funding called the 4D Nucleome Project.
Okay. Can you explain what that is? Because this is brand new to me.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. Like when Steve brought up, not to put you on blast, Steve, but you made kind of the same error that he made, which is that you referenced a finding that you didn't fully understand. There's a project right now that the NIH is funding, and I'm forgetting who's leading it. I know Erez Lieberman Aiden's one of the leaders, and Bing Ren, who is one of the big guys in ENCODE, is also a leader. But basically what they're doing is they're mapping three-dimensional structure, but they're also mapping it across conditions and time, right? And so as the system evolves, how can we understand the relationship of three-dimensional structure and how that impacts the phenotype by looking along time? And because it's three-dimensional structure plus time, they're saying that's the 4D nucleome.
Oh,
There was an announcement in Nature, I don't know, maybe a month ago. I don't remember exactly when. I read a lot of papers all about it. I just know, yeah.
It makes sense now.
That's just it. I mean, I don't know. That's sort of just like saying, okay, a system evolves according to time. Like all systems evolve according to time. It's kind of a fundamental aspect of physics. So I don't really know what he's like. Again, he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about.
Most differential equations are going to be with respect to time. I mean, so I don't know what the point of that is.
Well, I think it goes back to his admission. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I was going to try to look that up on Nature, and I kind of forgot the beginning of what you said because I was busy clicking on Nature.
Well, there's an NC. I mean, like the NIH has a whole site devoted to it. Just Google 4D nucleome,
right,
and you'll get
NIH. I'll do that.
It's an NIH common fund for anyone that's looking up. Like
okay.
And one of, at least in my Google search, I just Googled. I'm sorry, I'm doing other stuff at the moment too. But it's by Job Decker, the paper, and it's the 4D Nucleome Project, Nature. If you Google that, it'll come up very early. I don't know if it's open access. I can't check. I'll send it to Drag, but I can't verify whether it's open access. But you can see, like, it's written by Job Decker, who's one of the big guys in this, so I recognize his name. I'm okay. I know some of these guys personally who are on this. He's a nice guy. And the 4D Nucleome Network, I don't know who's in that, but that's in the supplement.
Also,
John Liss is on there. I don't know why John Liss is on there, but his work is really good. Like it's funny. I can recognize a lot of these guys because I end up reading their papers because they're foundational stuff in the field.
Also, Nephi described DNA as an algorithm, but I have never heard anybody describe it as such.
I think he's talking about Shannon information again.
No, he's not talking about algorithm. God damn it! Don't say stupid things. Information theory is different than Shannon information, which is different than, which is entirely different from. What was I gonna say? It's entirely different from what an algorithm is. I don't know how you could say DNA is an algorithm because it doesn't. That's not.
Does it work like an algorithm? Does it work like an algorithm? It's weird.
Well, I don't. Well, something working like an algorithm doesn't mean that it's an algorithm, right? Like, there's not a centralized algorithm for how neurons wire, but there are people who try to abstract that process into an algorithm.
Yeah, you can say that the eye works like a camera, but that doesn't mean the eye is designed because of that.
Yeah, it's a really weird way of phrasing it. I honestly don't know what his.
Yeah, I don't think
it's just a big argument from analogy, basically.
Yeah, that's all they have.
Hey, sorry.
I'm going to put the link to that in the chat once I get on my other account on.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed is that they
link,
don't understand analogies very well, and they just kind of throw it out there saying, oh, look, I mean, Nephi tried to do it with me, threw 3 things out there that were all analogous in types of language, and I'm like, this is not how I want to have a discussion. You can call it code, you can call it, design, you can say all these words, but it doesn't change anything, and I don't want to have semantic and linguistic arguments of what a code is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the full PDF, but I just posted the PDF here. It's like 9 pages.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say I posted as well to the main thingy. Yeah, I have access to nature, so if anybody needs it, I can get it to them. I know Sam can too, and probably Alex and others.
Well, one of the interesting things is that Gman was a bit upset that Alex kept correcting things like I think every time he'd mention homology, I think he was trying to say analogous.
Yeah.
And
well, there's a difference there, and Alex was correctly pointing out to him that he's using that incorrectly because he doesn't accept common ancestry. So how do you have homologous things?
Well, did you see what Gman put in the side chat? He didn't actually verbalize this. Did any of you guys see what he put in the chat?
No.
Oh yeah, I've responded to it.
So evidently correcting nouns isn't a big deal because he used the wrong noun. His argument should still stand, and it's just semantics if you correct nouns.
But isn't homology specifically relating to things that have a common ancestry? Isn't that what the word actually entails? More than just analogies?
And
analogous?
I can't even wrap my head around him making that comment because, as far as I know, nouns represent different things. A person is not a plant unless you're a vegetable. But for him, it's just I'm really trying to understand the fact that he had something factually wrong. We shouldn't address that.
He didn't like the fact that he had Mary Schweitzer being fired is factually wrong. That wasn't of any consequence. And you notice that G-Man took that and said, well, so you're saying because he got that factually incorrect, therefore evolution's correct. And we're like, nobody would ever make such a ridiculous argument. That is nonsensical to even say something like that. That's what he hears in his head.
I tried to say, look, we can't have a conversation about the evidences that you supposedly want without addressing the mischaracterizations that were made. And so we have to end up doing twice as much work in order to get to the point that you want to get to.
But listen, Drag, I guarantee it, and you guys heard tonight, Nephilim Free admitted that he was probably wrong on that, right? He said, okay, I might have that wrong. Give it another couple weeks. He's going to say the same thing over again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know he's going to say it again. You know he's going to be like, oh, Mary Schweitzer got fired, even though he's already been corrected in this. How many years he's been doing this? He never, ever corrects himself and actually keeps the position that he has been corrected upon. He always goes back and reverts to the original position that he was wrong on every single time.
He is exaggerating basically everything. Like, of course, scientists are skeptical against claims, especially when somebody claims like, oh, a dinosaur fossil has tiny traces of soft tissue left. And when scientists go basically, oh, let us see if it's right. But Nephi takes that as, oh, there's a huge conspiracy against Mary Schweitzer's findings and blah, blah, blah. it's yeah.
They all have to have that. That's the funniest thing, though. You see the pattern with the younger creationists and the flat earthers and all these people is that they all have to eventually have a grounding with conspiratorial theories. Every one of them.
Oh yeah, that's the main part of it. One of the I think the funniest part in the who's breathing?
I think it's, I don't know. Stop breathing, people.
Well, no, don't stop. It was turning me on. But anyway, Nephi said early on in the conversation, he wants to pretty much discard people from the conversation who know nothing about the topic.
So why is he talking?
Why is he talking? Exactly.
Thank you. I found that incredibly ironic. Let's
It's
see the
funny.
definition. Oh God, I tried to write down his definition of evolution when Gman asked it, and I'll tell you how far I got. The definition of evolution is all living things are related, and as the population exclamation point star symbol asterisk 7 Q dot, I don't know. Like I could not make out heads or tails of what the fuck he was describing, other than common descent. Like, did anybody actually catch it?
Yeah.
No, matter of fact,
you
I
got
had
the
actually Doc Savage was in the live chat, and I actually even asked him. I'm like, "Can you parse any of that out for us? I mean, just anything he's saying, does it make sense?" And I think Doc was about having an aneurysm. He was just like, "What the hell is this?"
Oh yeah, no, I was talking to him on chat as it was going on, and they don't call him Doc Savage for nothing. What? Let's see. One of the other
He said he
things.
doesn't have an understanding of anything. He was just like, he doesn't get genetics. He doesn't get biology. So
Yeah, it's God. So evolution is a concept. It can be considered a hypothesis, but it's not a theory because it lacks supporting evidence.
Wrong.
Ay. Wow.
well, he has such a straw man in his thing, so
here is some evidence right here.
but
There
there's
we
no
go.
supporting evidence for his version of it. That's the problem. He has such a straw man that can never be corrected.
Yeah.
And by the way, I put the link in the live chat. Go, if everybody can go sub to TellTale, that'd be awesome. Let's give him a little bit of bump, please, if I can ask. But yeah, that's what I wanted Alex to correct him on, was his misunderstandings. But according to Nephi, he has none. So it's so much easier to produce an effigy of something and say, okay, here's what this teaches. Let me show why that's wrong. And then we look at it, go, well, that's not what it teaches. That's not anything even remotely similar. So
Yeah.
I was excited to get just real quick.
Tommy, real quick, sorry. Sean Hofford has converted, Steve.
no, actually, he didn't convert. He said after, let's see. No, that's not. He's not converting. He's actually giving a reason why we shouldn't vote for Tommy. He says, after much thought,
sorry.
giving all the attention to Tommy Hall is that to invite ignorant people to watch his BS and follow his advice. He should be DQ'd from DF of the year. The problem with that is that Tommy Hall's not going away. Tommy Hall does have people that listen to him on this, and so it's. I believe me, if they're all going to be disqualified, then everybody that's on that list should be disqualified because they all have. Nobody should listen to any of them.
Sorry, I misread that. Sorry.
Well, it's like David Wolf, right? You can't discount that guy even though he's a nut bar because too many people listen to his bullshit and he's also harmful. You can't ignore those people.
Yeah, and I think, but here's the thing: there's certain people that I will ignore. One of them is called Mr. Grimm. If you guys remember him, I have nothing to do with him. I want nothing to do with him. He's not allowed in my chats. He's not allowed anywhere near my channel because he is extremely dangerous. Because of what he talks about, right? He literally tells people don't go to a doctor to get, if you have cancer. I mean, he's literally into this take vitamin B17 or worse. He thinks that somehow if you take massive amounts of sodium bicarbonate, it's somehow going to rid yourself of cancer. So that kind of stuff kills people.
It does.
So I don't want him around. And he kept messaging me for several past weeks, private messaging, and I just finally blocked him. I'm like, look, I don't want to deal with this. I had you on. Hogtie Champ kicked your ass. It's done. I don't want to go down that route where this guy has a platform to tell people that cancer is good for you, kind of thing, like the Tommy Hall thing. So You know, people are going to listen to this stuff. I think overall, when people see Tommy, the vast majority of people are not going to go, oh, you know what, Tommy Hall is the go-to person for tumors and to understand how cancer works. I just don't see that happening. Besides, obviously, G-Man or Ronnie. So, and I could be wrong. I mean, but it's a double-edged sword when you give these guys a platform, right?
Yeah.
So, my goal is just to have the good come out of something outweigh the bad. I mean, that's my whole approach when it came to like having Hovind on. I know I was giving him a platform. I know he was coming out of jail. I know that he had diminished his popularity extreme amount because of, you know, his incarceration and his extreme views. He got worse over the years. But I also know that he did have a following and that this stuff needed to be addressed. And he didn't get a bump out of this. Matter of fact, if you go look at his numbers, they've gone down considerably.
Uh-oh.
So,
Oops.
What's that?
I just said oops. Wasn't what he
Yeah,
was
look at his videos. I mean, he used to get 3 times the amount of views that his videos get now. So
that's good though.
No. Now it's a bit quiet. May I suggest that Alex and I can go over some of Nephi's claims? I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So where do we start, Alex?
Yeah.
There are no transitional falses now. Well, here are a few.
Yeah, I love that picture, by the way. Love it.
Can you? Alex, you are muted.
Yeah, Alex makes a lot of noise with his mic, unfortunately.
It's because my keyboard's really close to the speakers on my laptop.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've got to mute that, or else my live feed is going to go nuts.
I got you. Don't worry.
They're very sensitive people in my live feed.
All right. Yeah. So something I like to do when you get a claim like that, where it's like there are no transitional fossils, is I'll use a series that, you know, isn't like widely publicized on. So ICR pages don't have response articles written. So like crocodiles are a really good one because they're not birds or tetrapods, and so like you can kind of point out that they have no goddamn clue what they're talking about because ICR hasn't written a bunch of shit that they can parrot back. So if you really want to like test the limit of a young Earth creationist's knowledge of comparative anatomy, don't go to like whales and birds. Do maybe instead mammals. So like early therapsid origins, we have a really good transitional series showing you going from like basal synapsids, things like dinocephalians, gorgonopsids, dicynodonts, to more familiar mammaliforms in the late Triassic. And it's an incredible like predictive transitional series. We can see how all of these different things are changing, the cusps on teeth, the inner ear bone, the jawbone, and there's almost nothing in the, I've never seen a young Earth creationist do anything about it because it's a strong series, but it's also not published about very regularly. And like obviously most, and not all of them.
Well, it's not published a lot in the creationist sect, of course.
Yeah,
it's published a lot in the scientific literature.
Doesn't RJ Dowd book exactly on this very thing?
Yes, the evolution slam dunk, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like and the dinosaur image is a great example because like whenever you talk about like the origin of birds, there's like this always like, oh, you have a bunch of dinosaurs and a bunch of birds, but no transition, which is obviously wrong. Yeah. But like, I love the basket that's just like a bunch of dinosaurs. I'm like, have you ever seen a bunch of dinosaurs? Like sauropods and stegosaurs and, you know, spinosaurs couldn't be more different if you tried. Like there's this idea that it's like, oh, you have like this idea of a dinosaur, which then kind of begs the question, is dinosaur kind? And if so, you know, there's a lot of morphological change in there that you're just kind of saying, well, I guess it can happen. But like this image right here is really cool because, you know, you have, like if you go to the Thyreophora.
Let me zoom in.
Sure, go to the Thyreophora. It's on the far right side.
Yes.
Yeah, so like Thyreophorans are really cool because they're a great series. So this one has Scutellosaurus as the kind of earliest, but
Can you
maybe
screen share me, Steve? Quickly.
There you go.
a little, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. It'll get published eventually. So we were in Lesotho recently, and we were finding a lot of these early ornithischians, and we found an organism called Lesothosaurus, which has processes on its jugal that suggest it's a really early thyreophorine without bony armor, but it's bipedal and looks a lot like Scutellosaurus. And then you have Scutellosaurus, which is bipedal but has osteoderms, and then Scelidosaurus, which is simple osteoderms, and maybe a facultative quadruped. And then you can like see how each form just kind of shifts a little bit in the two main lineages within Ankylosaurs and Stegosaurs, which is weirdly switched up in this figure. I just realized.
Sorry.
The Stegosaurus should be over on the other side, and Ankylosaurus should be on that side.
Oh shit! Exactly.
But yeah, the point still stands. Like, there's this really, like, there's a great series for this, and even for ceratopsians, we can kind of like, within dinosaurs, we have Julianoceratops, which is something my advisor found, and it's this two-legged, 3-foot-long ceratopsian from China from the late Jurassic, and then early Cretaceous. Oh, they're getting a little bigger. The frill's getting a little bigger. Mid-Cretaceous, which is a terrible term and don't use it, but it's just this because it's, I guess, easy, right? And it's like, oh, now they're on 4 legs. They don't have horns, but that parietal frill's getting bigger. And you can go through the fossil record, and like dinosaurs have a good sampling in most cases, especially once you get into the Cretaceous, and our sampling's only getting better.
Yeah.
And like, there are these gorgeous trends we're seeing, like over massive lineages, and that's what, like, one of the big like news stories today is like, if you're familiar with like the dinosaur tree, there was this big discussion on like, oh, are ornithischians more closely related to theropods?
Ornithoscelida, yes.
Ornithoscelida, which is a deeply flawed hypothesis, but that's not why we're here.
Is it flawed?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't know. I don't know, but it's a huge discussion. We're not going into that.
Yeah. So, just in short terms, like, the reason the discussion exists in the first place is very legitimate, because these basal dinosaurs are all incredibly similar, and that's exactly what we would expect to see, right? These early sauropods look a lot like theropods, and these early theropods look a lot like sauropods, and so it becomes hard to differentiate. And then, as you go on in time, they become more and more different. And so an idea is that, ornithischians might be closer to theropods, but there are some problems with the paper. But the issue of dinosaur origins and the exact structure of the base of the tree is very legitimate because of evolution, because we have this kind of generalized basal dinosaur, and we have so much differentiation over time.
I became a bit too excited when I heard that paper about the Ornithoscelida hypothesis. But it seems maybe it is wrong. I'll go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the development of things like the horse as you go through. Was it the Holocene into the Pleistocene?
Right.
And they go from having 3 or 4 toes to 3 toes to then to hoof.
Yeah, there's also one thing that Nephi mentioned about the horse, that like the earlier horses were coexisting, which is not surprising. Like, for example, dogs came from wolves, yet we have wolves and dogs both coexisting. Yeah. That's how it works.
But I was going to say, but what we see is then obviously the eradication of the horse in North America, around 12,500, 20,000 BC-ish, I think, somewhere around there.
Right.
And then it's reintroduced, obviously then, when Europeans went over to North America and then became very adaptive again to its environment. And I like that. I only know it because I know a little bit about archaeology, which is why I tend to know more about that period rather than, the period you're talking about.
Yeah, and he made like a throwaway reference to horses, and I'd point out that, some of those Eocene horses aren't obviously horses. Like Hyracotherium and Eohippus are confoundingly basal and have a lot of tapir-like traits. And when they were found, they were like, oh, what a weird tapir. And then people kind of like realized, oh, no, I see. And like, it's not like a 1-to-1-to-1. The evolutionary tree is bushy.
Yeah.
But like, it's just so frustrating to hear the same stupid mischaracterizations
What
over
they
and
want
over
to
again.
see is they want to see, oh, there's the mother that's a cat.
Yeah.
Now there's the baby that's a dog. That's the kind of transition
they believe that the evolution works are always in anagenesis and never in cladogenesis. Exactly.
Right. And there's more evidence for cladogenesis.
Yes.
Although there is some
I
cool
wanted to
fossil
point
evidence
out.
for anagenesis. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, Jade.
Just want to say I wanted to say that that's okay. I wanted to say that I put the link to what he's talking about bats being more closely related to horses than to cows, than horses are to cows above chat here, the actual paper. Let me.
I thought that they were equally related to horses and cows, not?
No.
Well, I haven't. No. Yeah, to be clear, I found the paper. I haven't read it, so I'm mad on it.
Well, recently
But
there was
let me link it. Oh, here. No, that's not it. Sorry. There was an article. It started scientists called "Bats and Horses Get Strangely Chummy," and then it went to the link is to Sopherae and unexpected mammalian clade revealed retroposon insertions. And here's the link to the paper. And again, haven't read the paper, just found it. There it is.
Again,
yes, I have heard the hypothesis before. Yes, it's a very long time ago.
And why we got a small lull. If you guys want to like the video, now's your time because we have 100 people watching and like 33 likes.
Well, I have to
and
like
the people that are putting faith in Rodney. Rodney's not going to win.
Yeah.
For dumb fuck of the year. Just had to throw that out there.
Like the whole horse and bat thing. So, to my understanding, because I don't do mammals, I hear about mammals from other people.
I'll be careful how you phrase that.
All right. Well, no.
Yeah,
I mean, clarify. When it matters, I do in fact do mammals, but also sometimes crocodiles. They just give
we don't judge, man. We do not judge. It is 2017 right now, so you know.
Right. So there's like a really weird name, and I don't like molecular node naming because they give them all like these stupid Borutheria. Anyway, so I think it's called Scrotifera, and Scrotifera is like bats, and then a lot of these mammal lineages like Persodactyla, and then what are cows? Artiodactyla.
Cats and dogs are in there too.
Yes, carnivora. It's yeah. So it's like a molecularly supported tree, and it's kind of a pain because there seems to be some really rapid divergence going on. So you're not going to get good fossils for it.
And the problems for the major groups of placentals is because they diverge very quickly after the extinction of the dinosaurs, or most of the dinosaurs. Question. Yes. And that's why there aren't really many distinct characteristics we can use to distinguish which groups are more closer to the other, because they diverge so very, very fast and very early on. Of course, very fast, I mean like in a period of like a few million years. Long in human lifetime terms, but short in evolutionary terms.
But I think if you've just had something that's created a massive impact upon biological life on the planet, which is what we think happened, you know, the iridium layer and all that, then you're going to have lots of isolated groups of things.
That makes sense.
That I've only been using DNA for a fairly short period of time. You know, I can remember, you know, back when it took weeks to get any DNA back. So you weren't looking at DNA very much. I remember how exciting it was when they finally sequenced the chicken genome, you know, which was an important genome for, you know, the, you know, food. But this is, you know, today we're sequencing, you know, DNA genomes all the time. But at one time, it took a very long time just to partially sequence a genome.
And now they have a mini that can do it in no time.
I know, but in the past, our understanding of animals, you know, was based morphology, embryology, and physiology. And some things were pretty general. For example, I think of Nephi and I think of people like that. They're thinking of the artiodactyls and the prosodactyls as being ungulates, because that's the way we were taught when we were young. Because I'm a lot older than you guys.
Exactly.
Alex may not know. So, that this is what we were taught, growing up, because that was the understanding at the time. There were this group called ungulates. There were the even-toed and the odd-toed animals.
Yeah.
The artiodactyls.
And elephants were belonging to the odd-toed, I think, once.
Were there like one-toed ungulate, three-toed ungulate? I remember that, the horses and the donkeys and.
Yeah, okay, because the horses and donkeys were
rhinos.
prosodactyls, and so were rhinos. Yes, because rhinos had 3 toes, odd
That's
toes.
right. Yes.
So this is I think Nephi is to some extent living in the past. I think a lot of people are, because these are the as I said, these are the ways we were taught. But if you look into the past, it's very, very interesting, because one of the things these creationists do is they keep saying, well, scientists keep changing things to suit their whatever. Some of you know I like to spend a lot of time in the 19th century. Books from about science, especially zoology and paleontology from the 19th century. And one of the interesting things about that, because I've been looking up reptiles, the whole concept of reptilia has completely changed. It's not even really a group anymore, unless you just want to say snakes and lizards. To look up how we thought of reptiles. And if you go look at some of the old classifications, there were some classifications that had frogs in with reptiles.
Yeah.
There are other classifications that thought that crocodilians and lizards belonged to the same group. And of course, these are just based largely on, gross morphology. But when you actually read, not just look at the pictures, when you actually read the text in these books, it's very clear that they're saying, okay, this is what we think based on these criteria.
Can you now say wabba wabba dub dub? Because you sound so much like Rick from Rick and Morty now.
But it's not that scientists were saying that frogs are reptiles. It's saying we're using, and because of that, we think this is such. But creationists don't pay any attention to that. To them, what scientists said in the past was apparently, written in stone.
That was perfect.
Well, the problem again is that the creationists that I've noticed, if they don't have the foundation to understand how science actually works, the methodological approaches that science takes, then they don't understand why science does change, and it's supposed to change. That's what makes science the thing that we want to go to, because it's always on the cutting edge. It's always the best possible interpretation and knowledge and experimentation and data that we have. Now, yeah, it could be wrong, but you know what? I don't like to play this game of epistemic nihilism, or that, oh, well, yeah, it might be wrong and we may not know these things. Well, who the hell cares? You know what?
Yeah.
I'm a pragmatist. This shit works right now because we have evidence it works, because we have benefits from it.
Science keeps improving, and you can't do that without changing.
It's Mr. General Han Solo came in to grace us with his presence.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I wish I still had this one reference that I hate it when I don't save things, but I was just going to give you an example that I had that was demonstrating how, depending on how you look at the genome, depending on what markers you're looking at, and they showed 3 different versions, and in one place, rabbits were closer to us than monkeys were. Looking at, and that's the other thing they don't understand. Look at this here, that there was a really famous one. There's a video out there. I'll have to try to find it, where the guy is saying, well, it says here that humans and chimps or humans and monkeys, I forget exactly which, percent alike according to the genome, but look at this other one that says that they're 7% like mice.
Was he using an ensemble? Like
that's no, he doesn't. The person doesn't realize, and it's in videos. He doesn't realize that they're looking at 2 different ways. For example, in the I'm stumbling over what I'm trying to say. But depending on which you're using ensemble, whether you're using whatever, it depends on the results you're going to get. Also, are we looking at the entire genome, or are we only looking at sections of the genome that this guy got wrong?
Yeah,
I just don't understand this.
And let me bring up another thing real quick. I know that you guys want to focus on this biology, but since I actually like cosmology more than I do biology, and since I have General Han Solo here, I want to bring up something that Nephi said that I just stopped in my tracks and said, "What?" Like, kind of like you guys do when you hear something about biology and genetics, you just go, "What?" Well, this is something that I heard, and I want to run it by General Han Solo to see what he thinks of it. So, General Han Solo. The Big Bang Theory, and this is a paraphrase, but it gets to the point. But the Big Bang Theory is falsified because if it was true, then inflationism would have caused time dilation, resulting in a younger universe, or something like. Can people parse it out? I'm not doing it justice, but basically,
what inflationary would have done?
The inflationary period of the Big Bang would have involved time dilation. I don't know how to wrap my head around that particular thing.
No. Perhaps he thinks that's because inflation stretched out to space, it also stretched out time.
But time dilation only deals with things that are actually moving through space-time. So when you're traveling near the speed of light, you're going to have a Lorentz contraction, which is going to be not only just time dilation, but also size dilation as well. That has nothing to do with the fabric itself moving and expanding. They're not even remotely related to each other.
Yeah, I think he confused the... I think it's called the horizon problem.
Well, the inflation period, the inflation gets around the horizon problem. There's two ways of doing that. You can also use Jason Lau goes with that asynchronous light.
It's the one that
to try to get around
thermally, like at 3 Kelvin, you'll have thermally the entire universe to be at one particular column.
Yeah, but we're finding. So, from what I remember,
we need hyperinflation to get around that.
But it's at 2.73 was pretty ubiquitous to like 5 standard deviations.
Yeah, 2.7 something.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he was saying that. And I love this. He said that what was it? He was talking about metrics in radiometric dating, and he said they call it metrics because it produces a metric amount of data rather than it being a metric equation. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, he doesn't understand what a differential equation is. So I'm certainly know that he doesn't know what.
I was listening to.
No, he doesn't understand.
I was listening to you mention to him.
It was hilarious. I was rolling.
Yeah, I was listening.
Yeah.
1 second, I just confused my.
Sorry.
I was listening to you mention stochastic processes, so like randomness.
Yeah, random stochastic.
He thought you were saying semantic. And
really? Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Scientist Sam.
We thought it was saying
so scientist Sam was
I was saying stochastic.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying stochastic.
We know what stochastic means.
He was saying semantic. And so scientist Sam actually picked up on that.
Steve, I don't think most people know what stochastic is. I didn't have a clue what it was until I actually had to employ it to do something for IT.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I would think that Nephi would, because we were supposed to go in there to ask him questions, right?
And so you should ask a question.
I didn't get it out. I want to ask him about speciation. I wondered if he could even tell.
Because you know what would have happened. If you asked him that question, he wouldn't have been able to answer. Notice how he's trying to wiggle out of that moment.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show that, look, this is their go-to science guy. Okay? I mean, Nephilim Free and True Empiricism are what they prop up to be the people that know about science, even though that none of them are qualified to have that moniker.
That's the best they got. That's really the best they got.
Yeah, that's the best they got. Look at, I've said it for the longest time. I go to the people that know about this stuff because they study this stuff. That's one of the things that I have done in the Great Debate community is I've collected smart people. The reason being is because I don't know the shit that they know. Right? If I did, I would be one of them. I'm not one of them, but I love these subjects. But I know who to go to get the right information that I trust. Because they've demonstrated themselves to have a proficiency in these areas.
But there was something really funny. Do you remember when we had that hangout with Nephi about the flood? And he was bringing up, and we brought up the concept, why are these you know, lines, sedimentary lines in the geologic column all sort of twisted and bendy.
Yeah.
And he had a real problem with that. And have you noticed now he's adopted it as part of his model?
It's just certain things that if they can't explain, they have to adopt into, and then they rationalize away. I mean, rocks don't bend kind of thing has kind of gone by.
I remember that he doesn't believe that rocks can bend when they are hard. So he thinks that, oh, these bending rocks must have happened when they are wet during the flood.
I don't know his whole.
Wow.
They think water solves everything. Like Alex, like he would go into like saying that radiometric dating somehow is invalidated by water. And I've heard other creationists say that as well. But when you ask them, okay, what is it about water that changes the fundamental?
Said water makes rocks.
It's because they're trying to employ the reservoir effect.
Oh,
and everything was underwater, therefore they're trying to employ the reservoir effect on everything, and that's why all radiocarbon dating is fucked up. That's what they're trying to do.
Analogy for isochron dating.
I actually wrote down, because I remember hearing that, and I have written isotopes fundamentally next to it. Isotopes fundamentally flawed understanding. Then wow underlined a few times. I asked, is water contaminating the zircon, followed by several question marks?
Yeah.
How is water actually altering fixed gas ratios? It's just a lot of confusion. I have no idea.
And let me tell you guys right now. Let me tell you guys right now, because I've been in the, as you guys, some of you guys may know, I don't think Alex does, but the last couple of weeks, I've been very much talking to literally every day, two experts on this particular topic of helium diffusion rates, Dr. Hendrick and Dr. Gary Lachey. And one's a physicist, one's a geologist, and these guys are the ones that wrote the articles for Talk Origin on this very topic, going against Dr. Humphreys. They are going to be both doing a presentation on my channel in the next couple of weeks. Each one's going to be about a half hour to 40 minutes long in detail, going into this particular subject. So it is what we're talking about right now is directly related to their presentations. I'm going to be taking what their presentations, they've already sent me their presentations, and I'm going to be distilling it down to an opening to kind of get the basics out. And I'm going to be working with General Han Solo here to kind of get a brief overview and introduction, of very few, brief 2-3 minutes, just to explain this concept, because this is not an easy concept. The two of the concepts that I find for young Earth creationism that most people have the most difficult time getting into and understanding are polonium halos and helium diffusion rates. Because most people just don't have that kind of technical background. A lot of people like biology, right? You guys are all sitting there talking about biology, but a lot of people don't have the technical knowledge to understand the arguments for helium diffusion rates. If I asked anybody, I mean, Jade probably might be the only one, but even her, I mean, Jade, do you know like the arguments and why they're the main things that Humphreys did that were incorrect in his reasoning?
Shit.
Is Jade there?
I think she is.
Okay.
She's gotta be right back there.
It's just something that's not very prevalent in the community to knowledge, and so this is going to be the go-to video.
Basically, wrong diffusion models.
The
math models they're using is just too linear, and
the single versus multi-model fusion rates were wrong. The geometric shapes were wrong. The ratios they were using are wrong. The understanding of humanitarianism is wrong. They made so many mistakes, it's ridiculous. But
and did you read the epilogue of that paper? Because
I read what you said. I've read the whole thing more than once, and I've read it before. I'm gonna be very.
Did you see how he ended it? That they didn't want his criticism published on the Creation journal.
Oh yeah. They don't want the criticism.
But RTB would allow it. That's interesting.
Yeah, RTB is fine with the criticisms, but they don't want them because the way it boils down to is this, and I've asked Humphreys this. His understanding is such that accelerated decay is a thing because it must be, because there's no other possible explanation for what would cause us to see indications of an old Earth via isochron dating. Therefore, it must exist. Now, when you ask him, well, what is it that exists? What is the evidence for accelerated decay? It goes back to the circular argument, because it could be no other way, because the Earth is young. That's the brunt of the argument.
The presupposition is that the Earth is young, and therefore any evidence must be.
It has to be that way, right? So he's formulating the science to conform upon that presuppositionalism. So the problem with that is when you look at his numbers, they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. The math is off. He accepts this really strange constant pressure temperature, no matter how deep you go. address, you probably going to be more familiar with this than I am, but as you go deeper, the pressure and temperatures change, right?
Yeah.
You obviously have higher pressures, you have higher temperatures. There's not a constant. Well, he was in his paper, he took uniformitarianism to mean that there's a uniformness of constant and pressure no matter how deep you go for these zircons.
No.
and obviously, you know, the geologist is going, no, what? He's like, this is obviously a deception.
Nope.
So,
and ultimately, Lyle wants to make the argument that in a 4.5 billion year old Earth, the helium reservoir would just by now, you know, vanished. And it's so stupid because you have uranium decay that give off helium. You know,
yeah.
So,
many of the strands, many things in the decay chain are alpha emitters.
Right. So we know that the half-life of uranium-238. So
it's like 4.6 billion
just
years.
that alone should be, in this case, comparable to the age of the Earth and so on. And so, and the core of the Earth is big enough to, you know, to continue to have a reservoir of helium.
The vast majority of the heat from the core is due to radiometric decay, especially uranium and thorium.
Of thorium, potassium, and uranium. Yeah.
Is helium a byproduct of radioactive decay or not?
Helium is radioactive. Alpha particle is an ionized plus 2.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean that's.
And if it gets deionized, it becomes for the helium. Atom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What happens is you have a high ionizing potential that causes damage to the biotite or the granite, and these helium helium particles, they're called alpha particles. They will eventually slow down due to what's called the mean free path to the point where they can slow down enough to capture 2 electrons. Well, once they capture those 2 electrons, it becomes electrically neutral, and they don't have the damaging properties that it nobody would have because it doesn't have the ionization potential. So it leaves tracks behind, and it leaves evidence of their existence. And so the young Earth creationists think that because that somehow that translates to, oh, if the Earth was older, all this helium would have already been gone. It would already been, you know, escaped. Yeah. And no, because it's constantly alpha particles being emitted by the decay chain in U-238. So,
and the moment you have accelerated decay rates, now you're talking about, you know, so much heat generated.
Well, they can't get around the heat problem. Matter of fact, I've asked them about that too. And it's just a work in progress. They'll be like, well, you know, there has to be a way to solve the heat problem. Okay, that's great. What is it?
Steve,
because helium diffusion is one of the processes in this heat generation. So it's just like,
technically any of them are, even a beta decay. Small amounts.
Can I quickly mention?
Go ahead.
If anyone is interested in what I'm showing right here, the pictures I got from somebody named Scott Hartman. He's a very good artist. And the transitional fossils names I got from an article that I'm showing right now. Here it is. If anybody is interested, I have to go now. I will be back for in a couple of minutes.
And will you do me a favor? Will you post those links in the GDC as well?
I've posted those links right. in the original post with this picture.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
So, anyways, that's going to be coming up the next couple of weeks. I'm going to try to do it probably the 3rd week of December. I know General Han Solo wants to be there, and I have to get with him to kind of do a little small intro for this stuff. I've looked at their presentations. They're awesome. They're freaking awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that. Plus, we have other things going on. I've got other guests coming in. I might have Zoe Does Life on Wednesday. You guys know who she is. I was supposed to have Rachel Oates today, but the Ronnies got postponed again. I haven't forgotten. We're going to do the Ronnies, so don't forget, guys. And let's see what else has been going on.
Just quickly, Steve. Yeah. That helium hangout that you're going to have is, I think, going to be the first time anyone's addressed it. Like
that's why both these guys.
Apart from the 5-minute stuff that happens during debates and also the lectures that I was able to find and put together, a proper hour your channel would be the first to ever like look into it.
They've recognized that. One of them is an atheist, one's a Christian, and one of them actually has a lot of respect for RTB. And Dr. Ross, as a matter of fact, they had contacted RTB, and he said they had nothing but positive things to say about my channel. They were so thrilled about the GDC and my channel, especially. And so he had some trepidation at first, but once he got their positive feedback, he's like, okay, this sounds like it's going to be awesome. And they're really stoked about this. And you're right. Nobody has really done a video on this. There is going to be a video actually being done on this by Paul Gia. One of the reasons we got started in this, because Paul Gia wants to have a video about this. And this is going to be his B-roll kind of stuff, because, you know, he kind of takes various sources. So I'm looking forward to that. I want this to be the B-roll for a lot of other potential hangouts on this particular subject going on, because people do bring it up every so often, but like you said, it gets talked about for 30 seconds because nobody really knows enough about it to really diffuse it and discuss it and say, okay, why is this a bad argument? We all know why Piltdown Man's a shitty argument, right? But if you ask, you know, somebody why helium diffusion rates are a shitty argument, nobody's gonna know. So I want this video to be the video that people go to for that. So
can I have a go-to question for anybody that brings something like that up? And it's a really simple one, but I think it proves the point. And you just ask the person, because I've done this a couple of times now, what happens to a radioactive isotope once it's, you know, completely you know, gone through its radioactive decay?
Forms lead.
Yeah, I know. It's a really simple question, and most of the people don't know that the fact that once you've gone through your radioactive decay, what you're left with, the byproduct you're left with, is another element.
Yeah, what do they think it happens? This magically becomes nothing or something? Well,
I'm really not joking, and I think it's a question worth asking.
There's a lot of misconceptions. Matter of fact, a lot of people
comes down
much better.
But it literally comes down to a misunderstanding of the atomic structure of
let me tell you the most misunderstood thing that I saw when I went through nuke school. Some of the people didn't understand this concept, that when you have a radiological decay, when you have a spontaneous fission of some sorts, and you have a beta decay or an alpha decay, you do have a photon release or neutrino or what's called fission fragments, but the energy that's being utilized, or like a nuclear power plant, doesn't come from this mystical thing where you break it open and poof, you have energy come out of it. No, where it actually comes from is the fact that the fission fragments that are produced, which is going to be samarium or promethium, whatever the fission fragment is, could be a whole bunch of different equations for what the fission fragments could be. The energy comes from the fact that the fission fragments are vibrating. There's a resonance there that's happening because it's being shocked from that neutron. It doesn't exactly work that way, but it's just mental image. So it's moving really fast. And what does that cause? It causes friction. That's the energy that's being removed heat-wise from the moderator in a nuclear reactor plant. It's coming from the fissions that are, the fission fragments that have been released, not from when it breaks open and produces this energy like a light. That's not how it works. But a lot of people were so indoctrinated by middle school that they didn't understand that.
Making them fly around too.
What's that?
I said it's all the little bits flying around, bumping into other little bits and making them fly around.
It's all the stuff. Yeah, it's mostly for the fission fragments. There are also things called the delayed neutron precursors that are produced. And then you have your prompt neutrons, you have your source neutrons. But long story short, it's the vibration of the molecule, some of the atoms that are being utilized to get energy tapped from. That's the heat that's coming from. So, anyways,
I was just doing the young Earth creationist version.
Well, I mean, it's the one topic I did learn a little bit about. You know, you guys could talk about biology all you want and shit, but you know, I know what a neutron is.
If you're swimming in the sea of physics and atomic physics, I have merely dipped my toe in the water, or maybe a finger bowl, possibly. But yeah, my knowledge of that is wasteland.
Is that
once you understand the language of mathematics, physics is just a walk in the park.
Who's Eon? Is that Doc Savage?
I hate you.
I don't know.
Yeah, group chat real quick before I present you. Ian, who showed up?
Sorry, Steve, I missed the question.
Oh, we have somebody in here that's not presented, and I don't know who they are. I asked Doc Savage to drop by, but I don't think that's who that is. and this person's not saying anything. So we might get sniped, which is okay because I'm going to be ending this after, we're at 2 hours now.
I think Alex explained who it is.
Is it?
Hey, looks right.
All right.
You got set.
Ian, are you there? Oh, it is Don. Okay.
Hi.
Hey, welcome.
Hi, how are you? This is Ian, Doc
I'm doing
Sadek.
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to speak yet. I know you've hung out on Dragnauts videos. But...
Yeah, I've been spending some time the last few weeks just kind of getting the gestalt of this odd little community. I mean, the other side of the great debate community. And I think tonight's discussion with Nephi and Free was a perfect example of hardcore idiocy and arrogance. It was astonishing.
It's a deadly combination. And here's what the funniest part is that people may not know this, but Nephi was off air for about a year, and he couldn't figure out how to actually have hangouts. He didn't understand how to go in and do the to do the hangouts because of the changes.
They changed how you used to be able to do it like right from G+, and
right.
They changed that, and he decided that he couldn't figure that
but
out.
nobody from his side of the fence was willing to help him. It was only people like atheists willing to help him, but he thought that they were trying to destroy his channel. Fortunately, and he knows that I wouldn't do that, but he reached out to me, and he's like, will you help me with this? And I did. I got him back on the air, thinking that at least he might change his approach a little bit. And we come to find out, like tonight, no, his approach was the same. It's like, I'm there to ask him questions, and yet all he was trying to do is ask me questions, and that I'm not going to sit there and explain to him what an organizer is, or what is Neil Shubin's book, You're in a Fish, because it's a great book. You should go read it.
I'm back.
I'm not sure people like Nephi cannot gift gallop. Like, I don't.
He has no choice. He has no choice.
Even possible for him.
Yeah. I love that he can actually combine specified complex fallacies together. And it's a skill that I've noticed he's developed to a really fine degree, such that he can argue an answer to the question, what is a kind, by strawmanning the absence of the species issue in biology and make that sound like a response. And he took about 17 minutes to do that. It was amazing.
What
biology can't do this. Well, yeah, we can. Yep, sorry.
What he does, though, because
it's the 55 claims as he goes through it that he'll never substantiate as well. I know. Sorry, I have to say that.
You'll find that none of them have any positive evidence for their positions, and so what they do is they try to provide negative evidence against the other position, which doesn't fly because anybody who knows anything about these topics realizes that the negative evidence they have is against their own straw man version of these things.
Yeah, and I could pick up a hint of stress in his voice tonight, because I think for one of the first times, Nephi knew that there were about 15 PhDs in his audience, and the total audience size was about 25. And there was also the very excellent deconstruction of his paleontological fallacies. So, kudos for that. It was a beautiful thing.
Him down. And he knows that I could ask him really good questions. I have ran him off of Hangouts on my own by asking him questions, right? And I'm mellow about it.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that. I was seriously looking forward.
I'm his kryptonite when it comes to that. Like the other day, he finally decided to pop into a Hangout, and we asked him about. He was reading a paper, and the paper happened to talk about Gibbs free energy. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't like to sharpshoot. I don't think it's appropriate, right? But if you're going to talk about a paper and you're going to bring something up, then I want to know if you understand it. So I'd asked him, what is the paper saying? You're saying that the paper's wrong, so obviously you have an understanding of it. What is Gibbs free energy? Didn't have a freaking clue. Doesn't know what enthalpy is, doesn't know what entropy is, doesn't know anything about physics. And I'm like, well, if you don't know what this stuff is, then why you saying that this is completely wrong? I want to know what Gibbs free energy is. And obviously I do, but I want him to explain it, right? I'm not trying to sharpshoot him, but he knows that I'm going to ask the pertinent questions of what he's talking about, and he cannot answer those questions.
No, you're right. And I think the first question tonight was, what is his training? And I'm not saying that it's impossible to educate yourself independently. It is, and it's an essential thing. But I think after 20 minutes, he basically said he watched a bunch of YouTube videos and read creation.org.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
wouldn't you also agree, though, even if you self-train, what you tend to lack is the depth you get from a formalized education. That's where I find that there are real differences between people who are self-trained and people who are actually educated into a discipline.
Right, but what do you do when you have somebody who's so fractally wrong? I mean, for example, you know, Doc, if you have a guy that's talking about genetics, telling people that DNA, the monomers of DNA, are amino acids, where do you go from there?
Yeah, Drag addressed this in a very apposite speech video he did a few days ago. There has to be a certain level of uncommon understanding and agreement on terms before you can even have a conversation. And the creationists, as well as other reality deniers, avoid this definition at all costs. You'll notice the failure to define what a kind is, except as an amorphous thing that everyone can see. They cannot honestly give an answer.
Correct.
But they've got a problem with kind, though, because if you actually read the Bible and you look at how kind is described in the Bible, it's described in so many different ways that there isn't a consistent way that they can apply it that won't get biblically shot down. That's why they try and fudge it all the time.
Yeah, and I think Aaron Ra summarizes this beautifully. There are two types of creationists, and young earth creationists in particular: those that are willfully ignorant and those that are intentionally misrepresenting, and there is no third option.
I completely agree with that. I have absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I recently posted a Facebook post on exactly that I called Answers in Genesis. Like Ken Ham could have been quite ignorant on that remark he gave to Hugh Ross, but the fact that he passed it through Danny Faulkner, who should have known better, and Danny Faulkner gave the green light to Ken Ham to say, apparently Hugh Ross.
But we see it all the time. We see it with Dr. Tompkins. We see
that
it
is deception, right?
We see it with Humphreys. How many times I've had conversations with all of them in emails. You guys, well, you wouldn't know my emails with them, but I could tell right now that they are literally being dishonest. They are so disingenuous because I ask very specific questions, and when I have Humphreys, tell me, things like, oh well, have you looked at the evidence? Well, I'm asking you, and then they send me stuff that's self-referential.
Yeah. No, I agree with you entirely. And my motivation for any online activity of this type is basically a response to dishonesty. I celebrate your right to believe whatever you want, but the minute you start telling fibs for Jesus or whatever reason, and it helps nobody, quite frankly.
What do you think? Can I ask what your opinion is of like Dr. Fuzz Rana, who's also a biochemist? I'm lay my cards on the table. I happen to like Fuzz. I think he's a really nice guy. I get along with him very congenially. In fact, he actually might be having a discussion with PZ Myers on my channel coming up here. I've asked PZ about it. PZ said he'd be willing to, because Fuzz said he'd be willing to again.
They have debated before, I think.
They have debated before, and I'm going to probably arrange again. I'm planning a whole bunch of stuff in 2018. We're going huge. They might want to have another discussion. But I respect both of them. I respect PZ Myers and I respect Fuzz. I mean, but what do you think of somebody who's like a biochemist like Fuzz, who he obviously doesn't share the same ideological viewpoints you have?
Yeah, I think there are many good scientists who have a blind spot, and I think that's very unfortunate. And I haven't seen a great deal of Dr. Furzarama's commentary, so could you summarize the position that he holds?
Yeah, his position is that evolution only holds true to a point. He believes that at some point, and hopefully I'm not misrepresenting him, but I do talk to him frequently, and he takes a lot of my comments and questions for his weekly things that he does on Facebook. But his position is kind of that at some point there was an ensoulment, and that human beings were specially created outside the phylogenetic tree, such that everything else is true, everything else has common ancestry, but humans, there's some kind of special creation there that when God ensouled them, that was the first Adam and Eve. That was the first human.
Yeah, I'll give Steve a. So Steve's on the right track.
Okay,
so
because
basically,
General knows these guys very well. So if that,
yeah. So basically, that, and in fact, we kind of asked. Remember the very first hangout we had, Steve, where we were pretty much asking him on that, this very question.
Yeah.
So what RTV does is they concord us. They take the Genesis 1 count and chronologically match it with natural history. So in day 5 of Genesis 1, you have this notion of out of the oceans spring forth many different phyla. So therefore, RTV, they would look at that as, oh, okay, day 5, we'll consider this the Cambrian explosion onwards to be the Homo sapiens. So that means from the Cambrian onwards, you have what you could possibly see as creation ex nihilo millions of times over of species that give the impression of evolution, but actually they're uniquely created throughout natural history from the Cambrian onwards. But
yeah, God is
putting
his finger into the process every speciation event or something.
Right, but where Steve is on the right track is that before day 5, so all the way back to day 1, where the text mentions the spirit is hovering over the waters, and in this case, creating life in the early ocean. So we're talking billions of years into the past. That there is genuine evolution taking place until day 5, and then day 5 onwards, it's this special creation all the way up to humans. That's Fuzz's position.
I think it's a very interesting position, but off the top of my head, it smells like God of the Gaps, a little bit of ID thrown in, and a whole bunch of abracadabra.
Yeah, no, and they acknowledge that. How they will try and get around that is the uniqueness and the uncanniness of the way species seem to survive in the extinction events that take place through this large history.
Yeah, that's Dr. Ross's book, Improbable Planet.
Yeah.
So
he also needs symbiosis as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, people like they kind of are a little bit more judgmental than they need to be. I know a lot of people don't agree with Hugh on a lot of things, but I think Hugh's amazing. I don't agree with him ideologically, but he wrote a good book. I mean, you can't just dismiss his book if you haven't read it. I've read his book. I thought it was well done. I don't agree with his findings. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like some nut job book.
Yeah, the only thing we disagree with, Steve, like you and me disagree with Hugh and Fuzz, is literally the evolution. That's it.
The special creation type stuff. But you know what? The thing about Hugh and Fuzz, at least, they're willing to come on and they're willing to dialogue and put their model up for the test.
Yeah.
I don't see that with any younger creationists for the PhD. They won't do it. They all know my channel. They all know about it, but they refuse to go on air to have themselves challenged on it.
I agree with you,
Steve.
Hang on one sec. Go ahead, Doctor. What?
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Steve. And way back in my scientific career, my PhD advisor is a devout Christian and Baptist pastor, and he's full on into it. And we talk about this stuff. And his words to me on this were, I can't explain this scientifically. That's the mystery of faith. And that's the boundary for him. This is a belief thing. It doesn't get in the way of his science. We disagree, but he's a good guy.
I accept that. I accept the fetus position on that. I know Aaron doesn't like it, and I think people do kind of criticize that. I'm an agnostic, so I don't care one way or another. But look, if a scientist believes in whatever they want to believe, I don't care. As long as when they're approaching the science, they adhere to scientific, natural, methodological naturalism. They do things without bias, without their latedness, without their individual personal experiences to weigh their judgment. Like, for example, if they can believe that they've had a miracle, they've had God intervention, fine, whatever. I don't care one or another. But when they do the science, I want the science to be objective.
Yeah, it's a little bit like. Sorry, carry on.
I want to ask Steve whether we could go into Nephi's beaver thing.
The beavers and owls.
Yeah.
He seemed to be obsessed with plovers and other types of bird as well. There was something strange happening there.
Yeah, he just throws out all that stuff.
Probably that's he'll get excited when he sees Last Jedi with that new bird creature with
We'll get to that eventually, Ness, but when I got Doc in here, I kind of want to ask him some other questions. Do you know who the Living Dinosaur is, Doc?
Oh, the Living Dinosaur, yeah, absolutely. I love his work.
Isn't he amazing? He's awesome.
It puts me in mind of the 1970s and Monty Python in particular. So
yeah, he has that type of humor, doesn't he?
Does some great stuff. But I cut my teeth on him and to some degree Armored Skeptic way back in the day and DPR Jones. But Nephilim has been trotting out the same horse shit for about 10 years now, and it's unchanged.
The only thing he's changed is he's got a lot more convoluted in his articulation of these things. His word salad has gotten ranch dressing all over it, you know? So yeah, other than that, his arguments haven't changed very much.
What gave it away was his mishearing of your word stochastic, and he's like semantic.
I didn't catch that. I didn't know he didn't know what stochastic was. But he, like I said, I'm a script guy. We go back a long ways. He knows that I have videos on this. Go watch on my channel. I have videos with Nephi as I'm asking him this Socratic method kind of thing, and he gets frustrated, and he rage quits every time.
Yeah. I just find it fascinating that Gman, who I have to commend, seemed, as long as I was involved, to really moderate the hell out of the conversation.
Yeah, he did okay. I'll give props for props.
Yeah. I thought he was going to go sideways in about 10 minutes.
He hung in there.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Ronnie?
Ronnie is fascinating. Ronnie can spin out a fallacy and flesh out a vapid argument like no one I've seen. It really is a talent.
It's a gift, isn't it? I don't know from whom, but he definitely has a gift at it.
Yeah, I mean, Ronnie could really harness that. It's a gift from Loki. Yeah, I mean, he's remarkably wrong and inconsistent to the point where it's almost too cringy to watch.
So they've ran by you the whole spiel that he had for years now, that DNA when it goes in solution, not just dissolves, because we all know it dissolves. But he claims that dissolve, degrade, disintegrate, to break apart into parts, to fall apart like tissue paper, to break the phosphodiester bonds, to break the glycosidic bonds, to break the hydrogen bonds.
Yeah.
All these things.
But your DNA is always in solution.
So when you have somebody that potato, I mean, what do you say to somebody like that? Because I mean, we've all fought against him for so long in this, and we're all wrong. Jade. Fiona's wrong. She's got a PhD in biology. What does she know? We're done. How many PCR reactions? We're all wrong on this, and yet he, for some reason, like you said, is able to spin this weird, convoluted tale, such that we were all wrong from the beginning, and we've all now changed our position, and that we're all agreeing with him that he's been saying these things all along. And he's been right, and we're like, what? No.
Yeah, I've been kind of wrestling with this for a little while. I'm getting an echo somewhere there.
I don't hear an echo.
At what point do we declare this no contest? At what point do I sit back and think I feel guilty because I'm beaten up on the retarded kid? With G-Man, I'm almost there, because I really think the guy is not quite fully stacked, and he seems like a sincere guy who's really unstable. Ronnie, I don't know. I think profound ignorance, but Nephi, I think, is a dark spirit, quite frankly. But how much time do we invest in attempting to educate these people?
I stopped.
Yeah.
I straight up stopped.
I think it's actually more about shining a light on ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind making the video.
I don't really care about them. I care about the people that actually might listen to them,
right,
and think they're correct.
I enjoyed making the videos, like back a year, whatever it was ago. I made some videos on like explaining ETC. I explained some, our ATP synthase. I explained all the stuff that Ronnie was trying to explain, but was fucking up royally. And I said, look, here I am, a layperson that hasn't had biology in 25 freaking years, and yet I still remember enough, or at least can dive into it enough to explain to other people what the hell he's talking about, because he doesn't fucking have a clue what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, and I
Steve, I think what Ian's trying to get at is, it's kind of, to use an analogy of parenting, it's kind of like you will burn out if your children still remain children even though they're adults. It's just, there's only so much you can do. But then at the same time, Druss has a fair point in saying, well, there could be new generations of children that will then be misled by these people that just all they do all their life is just remain on YouTube and they don't do anything else.
I mean, that's why we have to be vigilant, and we never stop talking about.
So we have to constantly maintain that,
Yeah, and I think beyond a certain point, making fun of these people is not only what's indicated; it's what's absolutely required.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. I am totally with you on that. I know a couple people don't like that fact of the GDC in my channel, but it's an integral part of it because look, mockery is the only thing left that these people have. We can mock them, and that other people look in and go, you know what, we're going to laugh with you guys on these guys' stupidity. Yeah. Right? That's it. That's all we have left is just to mock them because nobody's going to take them seriously at all. Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have the right to mock because we've first been patient. We've established an argument that they refuse to acknowledge.
Yeah, we didn't start out mocking. I actually tried to help them. As a matter of fact, Doc, if you didn't watch it, I had a debate with Ronnie, and it was after a year, and it was finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I was in the Navy. I was a nuclear propulsion person in the Navy. I did have a background in nuclear reactor operations and turbines, so I understood the theory pretty decently. And he was fucking it up all the time. And I'm like, look, stop calling ATP a turbine. It is not a turbine. First of all, a turbine converts fluid energy into rotational energy, okay? And a proton motor is not the same freaking thing. And I said, finally, okay, I'm going to have a debate with you, and I'm going to show you the analogies and things that are not analogous between ATP synthase and an actual turbine. And I showed him Malay diagrams. I explained to him the difference between, reaction stages and impulse stages and Curtis.
ATP mayonnaise.
Yeah, I mean, velocity compounding, for God's sake. And it was so above his level, even though I thought I broke it down pretty simplistically. I thought it was pretty simplistic, but he ran away. He literally left during the middle of the debate because he was so getting his ass handed to him that he said, quote, "I don't want to continue."
Yeah, I still wonder if I went a bit too long with actually trying to help him out with the whole intelligent design theory and model. And,
yeah, you moderated it. You moderated. Did he not get his ass stomped?
You pretty much left no stone unturned. You just laid out your case, and all he did was, like what Ian is saying, they have this way about them where they'll speak fast and a little bit like blurry, where you can't really catch what they're saying. And they'll remember certain key phrases and words, and then they'll just try and, it's kind of like cheating on an exam, really.
But that means they don't understand the concepts. When I have
which means they don't understand the concept. Yeah,
exactly. Concept. I want to be able to explain to them that concept, and I'm not an effective communicator sometimes on that. I admit that I'm not a science communicator, but I think by now most people have realized that I'm just not doing this on the fly. I've had some education on these topics.
What's really the number one question we should ask them is this: how long have we been interacting with these people? Like, what would you say? 2 years, 3 years?
My channel goes back 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 years. In this 4 years, you can earn potentially, or maybe the year in, so that's the last 3 years, then you could earn a bachelor's degree in whatever science field you want. And in that interim, like I'm just saying, Gman, all these guys could have actually applied for a degree, and in those 3 years, progress through. And then to then confirm that, so not only have they professionally maintained some form of like recognition now in real life, but they can then confirm to us who do have the degrees that, no, evolution is wrong, and no, there is this and that. Like their so-called belief system should be then verified once they go through the system. But obviously they won't do that.
But I think once you peel off that layer, i.e. we have no expertise nor interest in gaining expertise, you get then to the conspiracy layer, which is we are all in some way in league with the God. I don't even get it. But you scratch that surface.
But you see, they need to go through the process to see that there is no conspiracy. That's the You see how if they actually go through a professional thing in real life, like actually they do real life, like everyone else does.
What,
they realize that there's no
indoctrinated?
conspiracy, that the science is perfectly valid, and there you go.
Yeah. No witchcraft required.
But you know, the worst thing in general is if that actually happened, if one of them did that, then all the rest would say, you've been indoctrinated.
Personally,
like kind of like what happened to Wayne Fillmore. I mean, he started to apply for science.
You guys keep walking over Doc. He says
No,
something.
Sorry, Doc.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
not at
Let
all.
the man speak.
We all have interesting points of view, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I've been exploring.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been exploring some of the Red's rhetoric, flat Earth, astonishing stuff today, and I really think flat Earth is the great sieve for retards, and I mean.
Oh, don't look into that abyss too long, dude.
Flat Earth is like the hipster of the stupid.
Yeah, Rachel Oates did a video on flat Earth, and I was giving her shit for it because I'm like,
if you haven't watched any of his videos,
it's going to be the same.
If you haven't watched any of his videos, there's a guy called Spokismo, I think his name is.
Oh fuck!
And it's really worth watching because they are so much fun. Because I do like to at least evaluate the other side's argument. You know, I try and be fair. I do put some time in, and I have a reasonably decent commute, so I like to be amused in the mornings. And yeah, some stuff. Just go and watch it.
There's not much dumber out there than flat Earth. I mean, that's to me is seriously the bottom of the barrel stupid.
Well, I've been watching some of the in an effort to be fair in my voting on the dumb fuck of the year. I've been watching the Anthony Riley videos about the invisible vanishing moon.
He's dumb. He's dumb.
He's got this great one where the Earth becomes more curved during the day, and it flattens out at night.
Wow.
Now, get your head around that.
Yeah. No, I can't, and that's why I like to believe that they're all posed, that none of them actually believe this shit. But unfortunately, I've been around too long to have that delusion any longer, right? That hope for humanity. They do believe this. So. You know.
Yeah, the ice wall is a classic. I just I'm waiting for one of them to present anything like a compelling model that doesn't involve multiple conspiracies, and no, it's just not happening.
Oh. All right, before we're gonna have to end this soon. I've been telling people I'm gonna keep my stream down to 2 or 3 hours.
I'm just quickly say I'm interested with. So Ian, you're new. Is this literally your first hangout?
No, I've been active in small ways, more looking at people who prey on the mentally ill and scam folks, psychic powers and such like. And I've got an interest in honesty and science and atheism as well. So I've had a little bit more time in the last few weeks, and I've been exploring some interesting discussions, yourselves included in that.
Oh, we're going
to. You've known of Steve McRae's GDC for a while then?
I've known about it for about a month, and I've been active in the last couple of weeks.
You're going to love the fact coming up next year, we are going to have a hangout. We're going to have a discussion with Holy Kool-Aid and a few other people on psychic scams.
Perfect.
Including cold reading, hot reading, Teresa Caputo, and Ron Prague and all these guys. So if you're down with that, we would love to have you, because back in the day, before I got started on a lot of this other stuff, I was on Ron Tebow's channel debunking all this shit because I did understand how some of the stuff worked. And I also did what's called chiromancy. And that was, and I never, when I say that, I mean, I use it as a tool to explain to people that how a hot read is done and how a cold read is done. And I always informed them it was a trick, right? It was a mental trick that I was using. But you'd be surprised how many people actually, even after being told it's a trick, said, "No, you've got a gift."
Yeah, yeah, and
I'm just shocked by that. But yeah, I want to have a hangout, explain to people when I did palm reading, which is chiromancy, what I was doing and what I was looking for and what things I picked up to tell people what they wanted to hear in very open-ended questions to employ the Barnum effect.
Exactly. And now all I need is your credit card number. And it's the last bit that I have the problem with. You know, many different healing modalities are highly effective for various different reasons. But when you're exploiting folks and keeping them away from actual medicine, psychological or otherwise, Tommy Hall, speaking to you, brother, that's a problem you're going to get jumped on.
Steve, before you end the hangout, can we go back to Nephi's
yeah,
claims?
Nestle wants to talk about beavers.
Yeah, let's talk about beavers.
Not just I, also Alex and Jade want to.
I like beaver.
I like beaver.
You guys like beavers, so
it falls into a time frame I might have something to actually comment on, so I'm cool with it.
So for the next 5 or 10 minutes, we'll talk about beaver. Then I got to end this because people have been complaining that my hangouts are too long, and they're right. So I want to keep it.
Oh, Steve, I finally joined the Hangout operators with my face as well. So it's...
Just because you've been drinking today.
Yeah.
By the way, just FYI, we actually have a party tonight over here because, as you guys know, that our roommate got evicted. So my landlord was nice enough to buy a bottle of corn whiskey for me and some alcohol for other people. Plus, we're going to get some steaks, and we're actually going to get drunk and have steak tonight in celebration. And I'm going to, at some point, I'll probably go live because I'm getting hammered tonight off corn whiskey. FYI.
Was the first thing that you did after he got evicted, did you all like march upstairs and turn to have a pee in his toilet?
Yeah, we all did. I peed up there. Yeah, he hasn't been back since. He has like 9 more days to get his stuff, which I don't think he's going to do, but not much really I want. So, but if he does, we're going to go through it. But I'm really looking forward to diving into that corn whiskey. Go ahead with the beavers.
All right. Of course, Nephi says that if something looks like an owl, it is an owl, or if something looks like a beaver, it's a beaver. But that's not entirely true. And let me illustrate the point. Steve, I'm going to show you an animal, and just say one word to describe it.
Else do it. I have to go for a second.
Oh, or someone else. Let's say Ian.
That's a beaver.
What do you think? Seriously. Seriously, what do you think this animal is?
That looks like an iguana to me.
Does it look like a lizard?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not actually a lizard. It's a tuatara. Tuataras are not actually lizards. So it looks like a lizard, but it's not a lizard. So Nephi's point is very weird when you consider how we classify animals. Now the beaver that Nephilim is talking about, let me pull it up. Where is it? Where did they put it?
Lost your beaver?
Yeah, I lost my beaver.
Example of that.
Oh, dude, I've lost a lot of beaver.
Oh, no, I have it. Let me.
Yeah.
Here we go. There we go. All right. So this is the beaver that he's talking about, right there. Castorocauda, I think is pronounced.
Castrocauda.
Yeah.
That's Castorocauda.
Yeah, Cauda's tail.
Yes. Now I looked it up and to see where it belongs on the phylogeny. Let's see. Here's a good one. Here we see the placentals in this line, and here we see the and also marsupials in this line, the pteriforms, and we have the monotremes, the echidna, and the platypus. And where is this thing? Where is this
I remember
thing?
those are the only 2 extant forms of monotremes that lay eggs. For that biology.
Gastrocauda is right here. Basically, what this tells you is that platypus is more closely related to actual beavers than this thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very far. Yeah, it's very distantly related. It's not even an actual mammal in the crown group. It's very
Something.
It's not a placental mammal.
No, it's.
It depends how broadly you define mammal. It's also a very a minor point in taxonomy, because how do you draw the line between what's a mammal and what is not a mammal? Some
Mammary glands.
Yeah, you see,
Well,
just
that's actually a really good
I
question.
wanted,
yeah.
I
So-
wanted to.
A strict definition. Oh, so a
Hang
strict
on, you guys are
definition.
walking each other. Go ahead,
Oh.
Jade.
Let's go ahead.
You got it.
Okay. No, okay. I just wanted to say I wanted to read the abstract from the paper. It's in Science, and the name of the paper is called a swimming mammalia form from the Middle Jurassic and ecomorphological diversification of early mammals by Quang Ji et al. And of course, I know I'm mispronouncing that. Anything in a dodoncan mammalia form from the Middle Jurassic of China possesses swimming and burrowing skeletal adaptations and some dental features for aquatic feeding. It is the most primitive taxon in the mammalian lineage known to have fur and has a broad, flattened, partly scaly tail analogous to that of modern beavers.
Mhm.
Dodoncanodonts were semi-aquatic, convergent to the modern platypus and many Cenozoic placentals. This fossil demonstrates that some mammalia forms, or proximal relatives to modern mammals, developed diverse locomotory and feeding adaptations, and were ecomorphologically different from the majority of generalized small terrestrial Mesozoic mammalian insectivores.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell you just said, but that was hot.
Okay, but anyway, okay, good. So where this
love
comes
science.
from? Okay, where this comes from? A guy, where a lot of this that he's talking comes from is a guy named Carl Werner.
Mhm.
You may have heard of him.
Yeah.
And there's an article by because when I did my video, I looked at this. There's an article by Calvin Smith. It's in creation.com, and this article is reprinted all over the internet, and some places don't even give it give credit to where it came from, but I found it. Part of what the article says is many still think that mammals and dinosaurs, for example, never coexisted, or if they did, it was only for a short period when only small shoe-like mammals were present. So otherwise, and I'm going to jump down, it says, to the surprise of many, ducks, squirrels, platypus, beaver-like, and badger-like creatures have all been found in the dinosaur-era rock layers, along with bees, cockroaches, frogs, and pine trees. Most people don't picture a T-Rex walking along with a duck flying overhead, but that's what the so-called Dino-era fossils would prove. Now, what he kindly does is he actually gives you links to where you can find the actual papers, but or at least an article about the paper. Like one is Swimming with Dinos, Museum Victoria, but you can find the original, or BBC News, Cretaceous duck ruffles feathers. But you can find the original paper from these articles. But you know darn well that the creationists are not going to bother to look at the references. And I did that little video that I've out my channel. I'm just trying to point out that I did a short video on the mammals he mentioned and the duck. Showing the actual papers and how far wrong they've got it. So this is again the situation where someone is they're trying to give you an idea of what this animal looks like. So they're saying it has a flattened tail, like a beaver does.
Yeah.
They're not saying it's a fucking beaver.
No.
Well, that's why he keeps asking, well, why do they say it's beaver-like? Well, there's a certain that that you can the average person could go, okay,
Thylacine was wolf-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
Exactly.
take these things to an extreme. They don't understand analogies worth a shit.
No. Also, another thing to point out, because this beaver is so distantly related from placentals, it means that it probably laid eggs. So Nephi's beaver probably laid eggs.
Weren't they been monotremes then?
No,
any basal mammaliform probably laid eggs.
But except for marsupials and placentals, which are terriforms, every other primitive mammal, probably laid eggs. That's a primitive characteristic. That's how all amniotes started out.
It's like yours.
Yeah.
But I think Nephi still thinks that evolution is dinosaur giving birth to fully formed chicken.
Oh yeah, no,
ducks and so on.
You see that in jest, but that is what they think.
Yeah, nothing that he presents from paleontology, when it's actually accurate, goes anywhere to discredit any aspect of evolutionary theory, and that's the joy of his misinformation.
when I hear somebody say something along the lines, well, what, if two apes get together or two monkeys get together and they, pop out a human, it's like, it's a level of dumb fuckery where I just go, you know what, I can't even have this conversation any longer. I'm not an expert in these things. Everybody knows that. But I mean, it's still, even I understand the basic concepts that species produce their own species. I understand Meyer's law of monophyly. But when you have these idiots like Nephi Free and Gman, especially Ronnie and all these guys, they don't even know why they're wrong as a whole. I mean, they just sit there and go, oh, well, who was the first human? If you have to ask that question, you don't understand the question. You don't understand how that's not even a rational question.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but Neff is uneducable. There is an infamous hangout somewhere where Fiona and I are talking to Neff, and he's trying to say, well, where is a brand new structure? Where's a brand new?
I hate that.
And we're giving him examples. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I was in there. That was the one.
Oh, you were in there. Yeah, and we're actually giving him.
He got pissed off. You were hard. Was that the one that you were hard of hearing and that he kicked you out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But he, one of the
it was definitely during that time.
Yeah, but we were giving him examples, but he kept either misrepresenting the example or denying it was an example, saying that's not a new structure.
Yeah.
We gave him the example. I was going to say we gave him the example of Serious Mind, who was on here on YouTube, who has an extra, brand new, never there before, which saved his life in a heart attack, which is how he discovered it. Mm-hmm. And Nephi kept saying, well, capillaries. We're going, no, it's a major vessel to the heart. But, capillaries, no, it's a major vessel to the heart.
But he
refuses to listen.
He thinks that all of a sudden it should create something ex nihilo. Like, that should be like, well, yes, this species didn't have a heart. The next species that all of a sudden pops up has a heart.
Steve, isn't it the same question he asked you
yes.
at the end of the hangout? But there's that question. I want to pull up an article that I just remembered before Gman ended it all.
Why do you think I wasn't going down that rabbit hole?
This is a paper. Yeah, this is a paper that I wanted to show him before Gman ended the hangout. So
Biosyngenesis.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah,
There's also a lot of really interesting research being done on one of my favorite subjects, which is the evolution of the vertebrate skeleton and the evolution of bone, including what genetic changes caused the different steps. And we can see, we have such marvelous examples going from the cyclostomata on to bony fish.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
huge amount of information out there.
Yeah, the placoderms.
Yeah, the
placoderms. He still has never corrected himself on the whole protein.
They're in the middle, the placoderms.
Yeah,
yeah,
and the galeapsids and all these other things.
Neff has also.
Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, Neff has also thrown the no beneficial mutations at me quite specifically, and I thought I'll give him the best, clearest examples I can. And the one I chose to use was sickle cell anemia and the resistance to malaria, and that involves the environment. And I thought, natural selection, you'll get it. It became clear after a few exchanges that he doesn't actually grasp the concept of homozygosity and heterozygosity.
Nope.
He could not understand that having one copy of this mutant gene is actually a huge benefit. Is it? No,
well,
no.
Yeah, it's only when you have the homozygosity that you start having the deleterious effects of right.
Exactly.
But he denied that was a beneficial mutation, as well as the CCR5 mutation in Northern Europeans that's gives partial resistance to HIV.
I thought that was a CCR Delta 32.
Yeah,
CCR Delta 32. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
correct.
I like how Natlan.
Hey, I corrected a PhD. I corrected a PhD.
yeah, quite right.
And
good boy, Steve. Well done.
But what my favorite was lactase persistence, because we had so much topics explaining to these people lactase persistence, and Tommy Hall to this day still has no fucking idea what it is, and yet I've sat down and explained to him. Jade has, Fiona has. It is like anybody who's even listened to any of those conversations should be a master about lactase persistence. No, not him. Doesn't understand why.
It seems very weird because Tommy Hall would be very interested in nipples.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly ask Jade something? Have you come across Australopithecus sediba? It's a find in South Africa, and it's really, really interesting because we found a lot of bones, not just teeth or a bit of a jaw, but lots and lots and lots of bones.
And one thing,
I think
I need to step on you there.
I was
Just
going
go
to
ahead.
say, no. I was going to say, I think you'll find that really interesting.
Go ahead, Jay. Then I got
One of the things I wanted to mention, is that, and I've several times, but he just sort of glosses over it because he always tries to say there are no beneficial mutations, and I keep pointing out to him, I have 2 of them.
I don't even know where he gets that. I mean, well, first of all, it goes back to the whole thing I was asking him, because you know what random he would select.
You want me to explain what they are? Whatever.
Well, he doesn't know what it means to be beneficial or deleterious with respect to the environment.
Steve, you cut off Jade in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, you did.
Right, sorry.
I was pointing out that I have 2 beneficial mutations. One of my mutations was, I've lost the reference, but at one time it was last I heard to Denmark, which is interesting given that I'm Irish and German, but nobody's kind of anything particular. I'm not talking about tanning. I'm talking about changing color. I can go out, well, of course, at my age, it's not so evident, but because your skin changes. When I was younger, I could go out in the sun in the morning, and I would be several shades darker by the afternoon.
So
the next morning, I'd be back to the original color. Now, I'm fair-skinned, but I don't burn. Or, I mean, I would burn if I was out there for a very long time, but,
you have more resistance,
I would go out and... Yeah, so in other words, the fact that my skin changes color, that something in my skin, as I said, I've found the gene once, haven't been able to find it since, in my skin, keeps a fair-skinned person like I am, and I'm pretty fair, folks, keeps me from burning. That's an advantageous mutation right then and there.
But actually,
the other one I have...
That makes sense that you'd have it, because if you think about it, you've got the Frankish Empire, the Scandinavians, that's a natural mix there, that's the Germanic. You've got Dublin as well, which was a Viking city, which was a Danish Viking city as well.
Yes, it was. It was a Danish town, yeah. So I guess I got it somewhere. So I guess I got it from both sides somewhere. But yeah, so that's a beneficial mutation because it keeps me from burning. That's definitely beneficial. The other one I have, could be unique to me. I have more rods in my eyes than most people. Every time I go to the ophthalmologist, they look in my eyes and go, "Oh, that's really interesting." As a result, I see really well in the dark. A bit sensitive to light.
Better night vision would definitely be advantageous.
Yeah.
Now, so imagine if I were living in a more primitive society. Let's go back to ancient Germany, or we're living in the woods. And to have the advantage of being able to see well in the dark helps you not only hunt yourself from predators. That's a very good advantageous, and of course not burning is advantageous. So I just happen to have 2 beneficial mutations that I know of. Other people probably have beneficial mutations, but they may not be so obvious. You may not know about it. It may have something to do with your physiology.
And what's
interesting? I mean, there is now reverse engineered medicine to mimic the phenotype associated with some beneficial mutations. And there's one area where this is going to be huge in the next several years, and that is looking at the deposition of calcium metabolism in the bones. There's a family of people who have super dense bones as a function of a mutation. And several companies...
LRP5, I think.
Yeah, that's right, sclerostin. So by genetic engineering and protein manufacture of a specific factor to mimic the phenotype, it's almost certainly likely that most osteoporosis can be very effectively prevented or treated. And we can explore the stars in microgravity without wasting away.
Also, which is going to be a huge thing, because one of the big things in space travel right now is they have 2 major problems. One, bone density is two, free floating of the brain. The brain has a tendency to in microgravity to actually deform, and so
I want to mention something about the unknown beneficial mutation, because there was one study about many anonymous volunteers that donated their DNA for research, and what it showed that some of them had genetic defects that should mean that they were pretty sick. They had I don't know the specifics, but they should have very severe genetic diseases, but they were perfectly fine, and we don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
They had beneficial mutations probably that prevented them from being sick.
Isn't that like the hemophilia anemia side?
Hey, sorry, just I got to bounce, but thanks so much for having me.
So before you, hang on.
Before you go, Alex, are you perhaps interested in joining another hangout after this, or can
when?
Just after this, immediately or not?
I could join another one. Yeah, I just need like a half hour to do.
If you guys want to run one on the GDC channel, be my guest. Nestle, you have moderation over there, right?
Yeah, I don't know how it works yet. I haven't used it.
Jade can do it if not.
Jade, can you do it?
I don't know. I haven't done it.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know either. I know.
I need to you guys need some training. I need to train you guys.
You do need to do that.
Perhaps after you cut the live feed, you can explain it to us offline.
I'm probably going to be taken off right after I cut the live feed.
I need to take a break too.
But
I mean,
anyways,
I'd be
guys,
up for a hangout later, but I need a break.
Yeah.
I need to go to bed because it's late.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a training session with you guys and explain to you guys how to run the hangouts from the GDC channel. Because what I'm trying to do is I want to separate the channels a little bit more, so the GDC channel has the ability to have anybody go on that's a manager and have a promptu discussion. By the way, we do have a new GDC Discord server. The link is in the video description. If you haven't seen it, you have to refresh. But you can continue on these conversations on the Discord. And then if somebody wants to have a real-time online on-air hangout, any manager can actually start one up. But anyways, Doc, I really want to thank you. First of all, again, I know you've been around the community. I haven't had a chance to engage with you. I'm glad that I have. I look forward to having more engagements with you. And I really, really want to get some sciencey stuff going. Yeah. So.
Or perhaps I can just start. I can just start the hangout on my own channel, or
whatever. I want to hear. Hang on, I want to hear Doc.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. What, Doc?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's been a privilege, and I'm sure that we'll interact a lot more as things move towards the dumbfuck of the year.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Oh, I'm telling you, I'm promoting for my boy Tommy, and I actually get along with Tommy. I mean, this is not some kind of personal thing that I have against Tommy. I just think he's dangerous by promoting this stuff, and I think he's I'm adamantly against what he's saying. I mean, he's wrong. He doesn't understand it's tumors, and he's saying that tumors, absorb toxins, and that oncogenes are designed to cause cancer, some kind of beneficial thing. It's like no. So yeah, I think what he's putting out is just not only just dumb fuckery, but it's actually dangerous dumb fuckery. And so I really would be voting for him, and I'm going to be putting out videos like I did last year promoting him rather than true empiricism like I did last year. So
yeah, I mean, True deserves a lifetime achievement award just for his persistence. But I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean him and Gman both. But anyways, Alex, I want to thank you as well. I know it was a spur of the moment thing that I got a hold of you, but I love the fact that you came in and you did a beautiful, beautiful job at having a conversation with Nephi and pointing out that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about at all.
Hard.
You know what? Say that, but you know what? I'll give him one thing. He will jargon bomb the shit out of somebody who doesn't know these topics. So it is kind of difficult for the average person to kind of go against Nephi because they don't know what the fuck he's saying. Yeah, because he gets things wrong. So,
may I make a quick point just before we finish off? And that's as Jade wouldn't do herself. Everyone do subscribe to Jade's channel. It's got a lot of really interesting videos, and they're pretty well researched. So that's my recommendation.
All
right, so these are the
coming up is some interesting stuff. I've almost finished the the PowerPoints and the thing for my second video on chemistry. I haven't put the first one up yet because I'm trying to get ahead, but it's going to be a basic Introduction to Simple Chemistry, and then
Oh,
I
I
got some
can't
other
wait for
stuff
that.
coming
I would
up, too,
love
so.
that. I tried doing something like that with the whole central dogma biology thing, which I thought I did a pretty decent job on. But I'm actually finding out I'm enjoying doing the math stuff, and so I'm going to be doing one on matrix theory on the GDC channel, kind of like I did with the Taylor series. Because I'm not lying, I really did enjoy that. So. But anyways,
oh yeah, that was fun. I liked it.
It was cool, wasn't it? I haven't been at math for years,
Yeah.
and the fact that I remembered how to do freaking Taylor series was pretty impressive, even to me. So, and how to do integrations and crap like that. I was explaining integrations. But anyways, guys, go ahead and subscribe to Jade's channel. I want to put a shout out to TellTales, who put a shout out to me. If you haven't subscribed to him, you probably don't know much about his channel. Go check it out. Videos link is in the description. And also, I want to push shout out to the Geek Room, who I think is going to break 1,000 here coming up. And I'm very happy that they did, because they had about 100 when they got here. So anyways, guys, I'm going to end this feed. I'm going to give somebody the last word like I always do. And the last word today, random person, is going to go to Drust. Drust, what's the last word?
Last word is, don't believe everything you hear. Go and actually look at the source material, and it's a much better way of actually finding out real information.